to a public broadcaster infusing that ethos that says equity of voices, diversity of voices, impartiality, and the likes. And they were working under extremely difficult conditions, under severe scrutiny, and a lot of danger in those times. So Makosini Mkitwa will talk to me at about 10 to 8 this morning. But let me rewind it back and just tell you what else is coming up on the show. Does anyone know what this was all about?
One of the risks is the risk of coup d'etat, to say there is a potential risk of a coup d'etat. We have identified it and we've put measures to mitigate against it. So that's why we say to South Africans, there has not been anyone attempting to do a coup in South Africa. In the last few days or in the last few weeks, there has not been anyone attempting to do a coup in South Africa. We can say that, not that they are not people planning. They are, but we're continuously monitoring them and making sure that we deal with those.
So according to the Minister in the Presidency for State Security, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, the risk of a coup d'etat being staged in this country exists. But there has been no attempt at staging it in the past few days or past few weeks. What about the past few years? Plans for a coup, yes, but attempts, no. And the minister asserts that this is because the state's intelligence agencies are alert and proactive, foiling any coup plan even before it gets off the ground. Curiouser and curiouser. Who has been planning a coup? How many such plans were foiled? How? When? When are the plotters appearing in court? Importantly, has our state security machinery improved that dramatically in the past 3 or so years as to be clinical in the manner described by the minister? That would be great for us. Make no doubt, make no mistake about that. But is it actually the case? So at the top of 7 a.m., we'll bring you analysis of the minister's claims with Dr. Yaki Siliers, who is head of African Futures and Innovation, also the chairperson of the board of the Institute for Security Studies. The other story will bring you Eskom's electricity tariff hikes tend to be quite steep and for some reason seem to irk us a great deal before they are locked in by approval of the National Energy Regulator, that is NERSA, only for the majority of us to return to a stoicism that says keep calm and carry on once the tariffs kick in. For instance, this year, Eskom was allowed to implement an average of 12.74% tariff increase, a far cry, of course, from the 36% that they had initially proposed. But still, it was a steep increase in the price of electricity. But keep calm and carry on seems to be all we can do under the circumstances. But have you wondered what's the cumulative effect of all of these annual tariff increases? Well, that picture is emerging. While electricity sales have declined some 16% over the past decade, Eskom's revenue has more than doubled, all thanks to a nearly 166% increase in tariffs over the same period. Basically, they are selling lesser and lesser electricity at higher and higher prices and making a killing. So we'll explore the economic implications of all of this at about 20 past 7 with Hanno Labuskaghni, who is author and journalist at My Broadband. And lastly, it is a known and commendable fact that South Africa has the world's largest public HIV treatment program in the world. But why are traces of antiretroviral drugs showing up in tests of water from rivers, dams, and even taps? That's what a Northwest University study has revealed, finding that while drinking water generally showed low concentrations, some areas presented hazard levels above safe limits, raising concerns about the long-term effects on human health and aquatic ecosystems. So at about 8:45, just before we wrap up the show, we'll speak to Professor Surani Horn from the Northwest University, who will unpack it all for us. Morning brief team, to your stations for the takeoff, please. And Musa has your hourly and half-hourly news updates. Rob Byrne with your traffic updates every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan with your sports. Melissa Puta with the morning brief in brief. Dowling Lechela has your business, economics, and market news covered. Let's engage on these and any other matters that may be on your mind this morning. The number 086 000 2032. Please send me WhatsApp voice notes to 061 410 4107. So what are we waiting for? Let's get the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief underway.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
So let's get started with the Morning Brief with Melissa Puta and the Morning Brief in brief. Melissa, good morning. I used the expression curiouser and curiouser to describe the claims of the risk of a coup in South Africa, but I think it applies with equal force to the first story that you're telling us about out of Eswatini.
Morning, Thulasizwe. So the government of Eswatini has addressed public concern over the deportation of 5 third country prisoners from the United States into Eswatini. These individuals are currently held in secure, isolated correctional units and pose no threat to the nation. The transfer follows extensive high-level discussions between the US and Eswatini with support from the International Organization for Migration to eventually repatriate the inmates to their countries of origin. The government emphasized its commitment to citizen safety, international cooperation, and adherence to human rights and diplomatic protocols.
What a curious story. Why not just deport them directly to their
countries?
They're talking about, no, it's a stopover. Why? Why a stopover?
I mean, maybe they deserve a trip or something.
Yo, what a story. Melissa, there was a meeting yesterday between the Justice Portfolio Committee and the Police Committee. They are seeking to work together, are they not, around these allegations leveled by Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi?
Yes, so Parliament's Justice and Police Committees have proposed forming an ad hoc committee to investigate allegations of corruption and interference in the police and the judiciary. The committee would also oversee the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry established by President Ramaphosa. Most parties supported the ANC's proposal, and the recommendation will be submitted to the National Assembly next week for adoption.
And then we're starting to come to terms and grapple with the extent of the damage, particularly infrastructure, caused by the recent flooding in the Eastern Cape.
Yes. So the Eastern Cape government estimates it will need about 88 million rand to repair hospitals and clinics damaged by the recent floods that affected 63 health facilities in the province. The floods, which hit several municipalities over a month ago, caused widespread damage across the province, with a total infrastructure repair costs estimated at 5 billion rand. Immediate repairs have begun and healthcare services continue in affected areas. So it will be interesting to see how they put the province together slowly but surely.
Lastly, Melissa, by this time tomorrow, or by the end of tomorrow, let's call it that,
change.
Things could be very different if the Mkhonto Sizwe party has its way.
Yes. So the MK party has issued an ultimatum demanding President Cyril Ramaphosa resign by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, which is also the 18th of July, Mandela Day, or face a motion of no confidence, mass action, or legal action. The demand follows Ramaphosa's handling of security cluster issues and recent police leadership changes. MK party claims the government is failing and warns of damage to democratic institutions. This comes amid national security concerns and the State Security Agency warning of a potential coup attempt in the country. So it's going to be an interesting day indeed tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what comes of that demand, and importantly, what the response is from Union Buildings, the West Wing.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
All right, here's the weather for this morning. Here's what you can expect on the weather front. There is a warning that has come through from the South African Weather Service. It is a yellow level 2 warning. It says damaging waves resulting in difficulty in navigation at sea and small vessels at risk of taking on water and capsizing in locality. Those conditions expected between Saldanha Bay and Plettenberg Bay, spreading to Alexander Bay from Friday. The rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria will be fine with a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 22. Johannesburg will be fine, 6 to 23. Mbombela, fine, 9 to 26. Polokwane, fine, 6 to 22. Mahikeng, fine, 7 to 23. Bloemfontein will be partly cloudy and windy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers, 5 to 22. Kimberley, partly cloudy and windy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers, 5 to 24. Uppington will be fine with a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 21. Cape Town will be cloudy with scattered showers and rain, 12 to 17. George, partly cloudy, 7 to 19. Gqeberha, partly cloudy, 5 to 21. East London will be fine, becoming partly cloudy, 13 to 22. Durban will be fine with a minimum of 13 and a maximum of 29. Richards Bay will be fine with a minimum of 15 and a maximum of 29. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg will be fine with a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 26.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
So let's bring you news out of the Middle East now. Syria is once again engulfed in a deadly wave of sectarian violence, this time centered around the southern city of Suwaida, home to the country's Druze minority. Clashes between Druze militia and pro-government forces, including Islamist factions, have killed dozens, drawing in regional powers. Israel has intervened militarily, citing a commitment to protect the Druze, escalating tensions in a region already marked by instability. Let's speak to Velem Els, who is Senior Training Coordinator on Terrorism and Explosives at the Institute for Security Studies. Good morning to you, Velem, and thank you for your time once again. This is yet another flashpoint in a region already characterized by deep-seated, decades-old in some cases, as well as very complex conflicts, often involving the same cast of actors as far as countries involved go. Located for us then in that context, what's at the heart of this conflict and who are the actors as far as we know?
Good morning to you, Thulasizwe. Yes, as you mentioned now in your introduction, it is yet another flashpoint that developed within southern Syria. Now, we see that the Druze is a minority, and it's an offshoot from the Shia Islam, just as the Alawites, where the former dictator of Syria hails from. And we see that about 3% of the Syrian population make out of Druze. Now, they are very exclusive. They got their own beliefs. It's a mix of Abrahamic, of monotheistic, etc. religion, and they actually go back, and the relationship with Israel dates back to the 1948, when they sided with Israel in the Six-Day War. And they occupy mainly the Golan Heights on the Israel side. They occupy Golan Heights, but also some of the southern provinces in Syria. So what happened now is even during the war or the insurrection with Hezbollah, they directed a rocket towards a school in the Golan Heights, where it hit the school, on the playground where there was a soccer match, and a lot of the children got killed. So now what happened of late is that Islamist forces aligned with the government of Syria. They started to attack the southern provinces, and they started to kill. There was some reports of many of them in the hospital that have been killed. And so, but on the side of Israel, we see that they have integrated in the Israeli sort of environment. Some of them have even got a party, or they are represented in parliament in Israel, etc. So they have been integrated with Israel. That was not the case in Syria and in the other countries that they occur also as minorities, like Lebanon. So what's happened now is the Druze in Israel, they place some pressure on Israel to actually assist their brothers that are under attack and under threat of being annihilated by the overwhelming forces of the government.
So thank you for that, because I think that explains in part the curiosity around Israel's interest in intervening in the way that it does. So you are saying it has to do more with the Israeli Druze community and the pressure that they've been putting to say Druze in Syria are facing this kind of threat and you ought to intervene. But how much does that complicate the picture for Israel? Because, as we've been saying, it's already involved in a multi-frontal conflict over the last few years.
Exactly. Yeah, we see that they've been attacked from all sides. There are threats from the south. There's threats from Iran and the axis of terror, as Israel referred to, the proxies of Iran that are being situated in Syria as well as in Lebanon, but also the Houthis in the south. So they're actually battling this on all fronts, and this is just a new front that has been opened. We saw that after the former government came to fall and Israel then invaded parts of southern Syria, and they created what they call a buffer zone. So they are there and they are protecting their own, as they say. But of course, the Druze has been seen as allies of Israel, and also because within the fault lines in the Middle East, we see that between the different mainline Islam factions, that there's been tension, and this is just a further fallout of that.
All of this happens, Velem, against the backdrop of the new government in Syria having come in following the ousting of Bashar al-Assad towards the end of last year, and his replacement, the current, President al-Shara, President al-Shara. Tell me about what the current conflict is revealing to us about the al-Shara administration's security orientation and even alignment in the broader regional context.
Okay, yeah. If you look at the new government, we see that they are a former terrorist group. They've been, declassified or delisted by America now because of all the right noises that came from the current government. But we see they actually, if you look at their background, they are aligned with Al Qaeda, and they were fighting not only against the Druze and Americans, but also against the Shia minority of the former government. So that is a background of what is happening, and so what we see now is that these groups they are not only fighting against the ISIS minority that is also in the southeast situation, but now against the Druze. So that is an ongoing battle that actually has been raging for many years, where the different factions of its religions, they just seem not to be able to coexist in quite a small area in Syria.
I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Velem Els, Senior Training Coordinator on Terrorism and Explosives at the Institute for Security Studies.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey Zai, good morning to you. So the wickets fell quite early in Harare yesterday, and Ashwell Prince is not in the least impressed.
Oh my goodness, yeah. If chess was being played, it would mean we lost our queen, our knight, our bishop. We lost it all. That's after chasing 174 for the win. South Africa losing the wickets of Luandri Pretorius, Ruben Herman, Reza Hendricks in quick succession for just 50 runs. And we've got Ashwell Prince saying that the early wickets were what was to blame for that 21-run loss to New Zealand.
I think today's lineup was maybe a little bit experimental as well in terms of left-right combinations, all those type of things that you try and put in place to try and maximize the short boundary. Next time we play might be in the middle of the pitch. You don't make a decision like that. So it'll be different. Next game, you play what's in front of you, and we know that we have the firepower to win every game in the series. But we also respect our position. We are also beatable. We take it one game at a time.
And we'll also bring you some soccer news. Lamontville Golden Arrows have completed the signing of former Royal AM winger Sanele Hadebe on a 3-year deal following his pre-season training stint with the club. The 18-year-old joins a growing list of ex-Royal AM players snapped up by Arrows after the Pietermaritzburg-based side was expelled from the league due to tax issues and financial collapse. Elsewhere, Chelsea goalkeeper Jordi Petrovic has joined Bournemouth in a deal worth 599 million rand. Petrovic agreed a contract that will keep him at the Vitality Stadium until June 2030. And we also bring you cycling news. Defending champion Tadej Pogačar suffered a crash on the 11th stage of the Tour de France moments before a protester disrupted the sprint finish where Norway's Jonas Abramson claimed his first Tour stage victory. Slovenian Pogačar went down about 5 kilometers from the line after touching wheels with another rider, but quickly remounted and the peloton eased off to allow the overall race favourite to rejoin. Ireland's Ben Healy, who retained the overall leader's yellow jersey, explained that he had a brief chat with the two-time Tour champion Jonas Vingegaard, seen as Pogačar's main rival for the title. And that's a wrap for now. We'll have more sport. Cycle back around the top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the leader of the MK party in Parliament, Dr. John Lopez, says another commission of inquiry investigating criminal elements cannot be the best option by government. Prison authorities have conducted a raid at Paulsmoor Correctional Centre outside Cape Town in what officials say is part of nationwide targeted operations. And the Reserve Bank Governor Lesija Kganyago says it's difficult to assess the impact of US tariffs on South Africa because there are sectoral tariffs that are imposed among other factors. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. We start in Pretoria with a crash on the M1 going south. It's between Rigel Avenue and the R21, so there is a bit of a backlogging situation into that area at this stage. Joburg's Mike 1 coming from the other side of the province is busy. Again, Boyson through to Crown Interchange, absolutely jam-packed through there. Durban side this morning doesn't look too bad. No major problems. Only a crash between Gateway and Kwamashu going southbound. That is out of the way. Durban generally looking a little bit lighter. Even the N2 pile up into Westwood Mall, not as bad as it normally is. Cape Town, wet weather this morning across the region until probably around about lunchtime. Conditions wet and slippery. There will be delays because of the conditions, so just give yourself extra time to get through. There's a big backlog already on the N2, a stationary vehicle. It was on fire. N2 inbound blocking the bus lane at Rapenburg Road, and that's pushed the traffic all the way back to the airport. That's heavy on the N2 running into Cape Town, and the roadworks that appeared yesterday on Jakes Curville northbound are still there this morning, so extra delays coming from Langa, heading up through Epping, over the railway bridge and in towards the Goodwood area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
So let's turn to Ndawling for the first update of the morning. Ndawling, good morning to you. ASML, this is from the world of chips, right?
Yes.
Tell me about ASML spooking the markets with their outlook.
So basically, the Dutch company, it's an important player in the chip manufacturing value chain. The group really specializing in designing and manufacturing components or tools that are used in or used to produce chips. To listen, ASML's biggest client is TSMC, and we know that TSMC's biggest customer is NVIDIA. Now, ASML, the firm says it delivered upbeat top and bottom line growth in the second quarter, with net sales reaching 7.7 billion euros and net profit hitting 2.29 billion euros, both metrics beating analyst estimates. But the company's guidance for the current quarter fell short of expectations, with forecasted revenue between 7.4 billion euros and 7.9 billion euros compared to market expectations of 8.3 billion euros. Now, the group has pointed to uncertainty when it comes to Trump's tariffs, and while there was some relief with the US lifting curbs for chips exported to China and AI fundamentals remaining strong, ASML is uncertain about its outlook for its 2025 financial year. The group says that while the company prepares for growth next year, it cannot confirm at this stage it cannot confirm whether a growth will be stable, that is due to macroeconomic and geopolitical uncertainties. Now, this led to a drop in ASML's shares, which ended yesterday's session over 8% lower.
I want to ask you who Scale AI is, because you explained the concept a few days ago about all these startups that, the bigger players are seeking to feed off as they grow their AI involvement. So you see, I was listening to you. But tell me about Scale AI and their plans to cut jobs.
So the group is cutting 14% of its workforce, which is about 200 full-time employees, and ending work with 500 contractors worldwide. Now, this move comes just a month after Meta's $14.3 billion investment in the company, which gave Meta a 49% stake in Scale AI. The group's interim CEO, Jason Droege, cited the company's rapid expansion into generative AI as a reason for the layoffs, stating that the group grew too quickly and it's also lost some of its major clients. Moving forward, Scale AI aims to streamline its data business to increase efficiency and deliver better data solutions to its Gen AI customers. And other related reports, OpenAI and Google have cut ties with Scale AI following the Meta deal. Despite this, Scale AI remains well-funded and plans to leverage its resources to drive growth. Now, Scale AI's founder, Alexandra Wang, has left the company to lead Meta's new superintelligence labs. This, of course, in line with Meta's strategy to get the best talent in the AI space.
So how are the markets looking at this moment, Ndauling?
Starting in the US, markets are back in the green. Traders sifting through more banking earnings, flat producer prices, and President Trump's latest comments around Fed Chair Jerome Powell. He's now said that he's not looking at firing Fed Chair Powell. The Dow Jones leading the gains on that front, closing over 0.5% higher. And then coming back home, the JSE mostly in the green. Some pressure being felt in the commodities scene, with the resources 10 complex shedding 1.5%, and that led to the all share finishing rather flat in yesterday's session, up 0.05%. Dollar weakness keeping the rand strong this morning. It's at 17.86 to the greenback. Then lastly, in Asia, markets in positive territory, tracking peers, Wall Street in particular, as global sentiment improves. This, of course, comes as inflation fears subside after flat U.S. producer prices offset rising CPI concerns.
Darling, thank you. We'll catch up with you in the second hour of the show. She'll have more updates for you just after 7:30.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Raz, let's start with news diplomacy in Southern Africa. Our boy is in the Mountain Kingdom, I see.
Refreshing morning to us and Jump Africa to the listeners. Indeed, the boy is mine, Duma Gideon Boko, is in Maseru, Lesotho to us. He's on a 3 working state visit. Yesterday, he was looking at the project on the Lesotho-Botswana water transfer project, the issues of water sustainability to us. But today, he will be attending what we will call the 62nd birthday celebration of His Majesty King Litiye III. In Teyane, Perea. That's where he will attend that celebration. But he has also engaged with the Prime Minister, Samuel Matekane, at the State House. He has an entourage of ministers from water, land affairs, international relations, just to engage us. And others are saying this is a historic meeting between Lesotho and Botswana.
And in other news, the Commonwealth remains quite a thing, doesn't it? And countries still care about being, booted out of the Commonwealth and being readmitted. Tell me about Gabon's restoration to full membership.
Thulas, you will recall that some of us will always call the Commonwealth the common poverty, Thulas. We say, what is it in the world that they're talking about? When you recall Zimbabwe, also Mnangagwa, after he won elections, wanted to go back. But the General Bryce Ngwema, after the April election, they had to reapply. Now their membership has been restored. Remember in 2023, Thulas, when there was that coup of removal of Omar Bongo, that's where Gabon was removed from the Commonwealth. Now the Commonwealth has accepted the membership of Gabon as one of its members, and there are many challenges that they are facing, Thulas, that probably the issue of democracy, issues of growth, trade, they might improve in Gabon. But like I said, all these international bodies, Thulas, they don't have a meaning to many African countries. They're saying like the colonized, still going to the colonizer.
Yeah, and trimming the fat seems to be a theme beyond just South Africa and reducing the largesse. Tell me what John Dramani Mahama is doing in that regard.
So that John Mahama is now going to the path of the executives, the political appointees, saying that they have to reduce their expenses on issues of fuel allowance. It means that they are expensive cars, they are SUVs, Thulas. Now they have to they'll have to fill those tanks with their own money now, not government subsidies. But he's using that thinking to saying that leadership must contribute to the sacrifices it is asking the population to make. So it is a sacrifice he's pleading with his executive, his cabinet, now that they have to reduce these expenses, looking at economic reforms. You will recall that Ghana has been borrowing money at the IMF, Thulas, and also he's looking at the issue of ministerial portfolios. It seems that he has a bloated cabinet. He has to reduce them from 30 to 23, Thulas. And the subsidy on the media, Thulas, he wants to remove the satellite on the presidency, that government offices, they've got access to the satellite TV subscription. He wants to remove it. So you can see Dramani, John Mahama, becoming dramatic once more.
Lastly, Sipho, your historical archive has to do with the birthdays of two iconic South Africans. Please lay it out for us.
Thulas, I thought I would have touched on FABC at 75, but you
would have added a third.
I would have added the third, but let me not overload the listeners this morning. But what is important, two great, well-known South Africans were born on this day. One was born in 1952 on the 17th of July in Soweto. Mzimhlophe was a songwriter, a singer, an actress. We have seen him in Muvango. We are talking about Memara Tebogo, who was born on this day. Thulas started music at the age of 10, taught Japan, Hong Kong, performed for Nelson Mandela, actually, Thulas, in 1988 for Nelson Mandela's 70th birthday tribute at Wembley Stadium. Very important when you think of Maralo. A very funny person, Thulas, that she has invited me in some town, in some 4 ways. I said, Mama, I won't go to uptown. I'm still downtown. Talking about Jomosono now, Ephraim Masilela. It's 1070 Thulas. It's 7 decades of the Black Prince. Others they call him Braje, others they call him Jomosono, who was born today in Orlando East. We know Jomosono, Thulas, has been a soccer owner, a coach. He won the league for Zycan, you must remember. He won the league in 1987. Bob Safe, 1990. Coca-Cola Cup, 2002. Super 8, 2003, and in 2004, Thulas, he was named the 49th top grade South African. Braje, even if he didn't go far at school, Thulas, he was given 2 honorary doctorates from University of London and University of Dubai for his contribution to football and business. So happy birthday to both Bra Jomosono Mtomani, Ephraim Masilela Sono, Lemme Mara Tebogo.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Sipho. Happy birthday to the both of them, Maralo and King Jomosono, both celebrating their birthdays today.
My name is Dino Makakula, the goalkeeper for Banyana. I like cooking stew and pap, bit of dessert, which is scones. What will I say to the loyal fans? We acknowledge your support and we appreciate you being with us each and every step of the way. Please keep on supporting, keep on working with us in this journey that we took as individuals and as a team. We appreciate it. We are the champions. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects.
Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. They both have a rich history of glory.
Frustration for the home supporter.
Amakosi tackle the Porcupine Warriors.
This is as good as it gets.
This is the Toyota Cup.
The game you've been looking forward to on your football calendar.
Giants refuse to fall.
The big game.
The big game. On Saturday, 26 July at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus across the entire African continent and SABC One. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport in proud partnership with Kaizer Chiefs Football Club.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
All right, let me start by giving credit to the initial reporting of Times Live on this story. A growing number of e-hailing drivers in Johannesburg are coming forward with reports of violent assaults and robberies allegedly carried out by minibus taxi associations. The attacks, which include threats, beatings, and forced surrender of earnings, have left many drivers fearing for their safety and their livelihoods. The Johannesburg Metro Police Department, JMPD, has acknowledged the problem as part of broader public transport violence in the city, prompting urgent calls for regulation, protection and industry reform. Let's speak to Lesiba Mpia, who is the Gauteng Transport Department spokesperson. Good morning to you, Lesiba. Thank you for your time. Is this a problem that's even on your radar screens, and how largely does it register? How largely does it loom? How seriously do you assess it to be?
Good morning to the season and good morning to the listeners. Yes, we have acknowledged that this has re-emerged. When you remember that in the past few years, this problem has subsided after some violence that was happened in the early 2016, where people's lives were being threatened to an extent that e-hailer would have been burned alive. And currently we have a survivor of such an incident. This is a problem that we acknowledge that exists and continue to persist, but we have consulted the taxi industry, the leadership that has distanced themselves from such barbaric acts. And I must say that as a department, this is behavior that we condemn with the contempt it deserves. We can only conclude that it's criminal behavior. What we have done is that we are going to be monitoring the situation very closely, working with law enforcement agencies. Within the department, we've recently even unveiled our own public transport inspectorate unit, and we have deployed it to hotspots where these violent incidents are erupting.
What do you believe is behind this kind of behavior? You say that the leadership of the taxi industry distances themselves from this kind of behavior, but it is a known fact. I mean, you will know corridors where, I'm thinking of corridors in Tshwane, for example, the townships out of Tshwane, your Soshanguve and the likes, where anecdotes keep coming through of, taxi associations pulling people out of vehicles, private vehicles, because they believe them to be, e-hailing transportation. There's a sense of impunity about it. Is that, in the main, what's behind the phenomenon, or are there other factors from your engagements with the taxi industry?
Yeah, not only impunity, it's also barbaric behavior. It's criminal. It's lack of competitiveness that seeks to erode what government is trying to facilitate, which is integrated transport. We are actually making sure that a citizen cannot be inconvenienced and their right of choice cannot be taken away. And that is why we are saying that we've observed this behavior happening, where e-hailers are victimized, where people who are even using pool cars to go to work are victimized. We have a situation where a family cannot travel together because of bullish behavior, and it can only be classified as behavior that does not deserve its place in society. And that is why we are saying that working together with Santaco, with the Gauteng National Taxi Alliance, we are going to be focusing in this particular problem, so that we, as government, as the integrated stakeholder, we see to it that this does not happen. People are able to exercise their right to trade, and then people feel safe in their actual workplace.
You'll forgive my cynicism, Lisiba. It sounds like platitudes once again. This has been going on for a number of years, as we alluded to. It's almost like there are ecosystems of violence. If it's not taxi association on taxi association, for example, in the Nandue and Wata example, if it's not metered taxis versus e-hailing, now minibus taxis versus e-hailing, you really don't seem, as a government collectively, not just you as a department, because I believe it should be a collaborative effort, across departments. You don't seem, as a government as a whole, to have a plan, let alone a semblance of control over these ecosystems of violence. And sadly, let me put it to you that it is the commuter that suffers.
Look, I really do not blame you for being pessimist, because, of course, these acts of violence have been erupting in isolated cases for years immemorial. I mean, the Nandu and water issue is a 20-year issue that has been going back and forth. And every time when government intervenes, whether through the exercising Section 91 of the National Transport Act, by imposing extraordinary measures, closing ranks for 3-6 months, it seems to subside, but then it comes back again. And hence I'm saying that we can only say that this is a lack of competitiveness, greed, where people cannot tolerate a culture of integration and ecosystem. And yes, we have also acknowledged that in terms of law enforcement, there is more that can be done by government. Hence, we are saying that we have recapacitated the department. You'd know that a few weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, we would have, in collaboration with launching the new number plate, put in place a 80-strong men team that is going to deal decisively or particularly with taxi-related violence. And that is why we have deployed this public transport inspectorate to the hotspots.
Right.
The thing that happens with this Thulasizwe is the danger of domino effect. It happens in Joburg.
Right.
We find it erupting like in Tshwane. That is why we have deployed our police officers. And I think you're quite right. There is room to improve.
Okay.
And we can assure the public that we will not falter when it comes to their safety.
All right. Lisiba, let's leave it there for this morning. That's Lisiba Mpia, who is the Gauteng Transport Department spokesperson.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Yeah, very good morning. Crash on the N1 South coming out of Pretoria today. It's just down by the R21 highway. Traffic quite heavy coming into that from Garsfontein. Crashes both sides of Joburg today. The Mike 1 at Marlborough Drive, so backlogs coming off the N1 at Buccleuch, and a crash at the Busy Crown interchange. So the Mike 1 running in from Boysons, under pressure. The M2 into that coming through from Joe Slow, though, looking pretty bad as well. A lot of congestion around that Crown interchange. Durban's N2 now loaded up between the M7 and West Westwood Mall, looking pretty heavy. There's also crashing on the N2 southbound. If you're driving in from the airport, it's just after the Umshloti exit. So there is some queuing pressure into that scene as well. Cape Town, the vehicle fire incident on the N2 inbound at Rapenburg, that has been cleared. It's all lanes open now, but the N2 inbound is busy. And roadworks on the N7 northbound these days, as well as the long-term southbound side. Roadworks have popped up on the northbound around the casino area, so between Epping and Goodwood. The N7 North is under a bit of pressure, and there's some localised flooding around Cape Town as well, with some heavy rain earlier. Rain in the forecast for much of the morning. Do take it easy, please, on those wet and slippery roads. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
2022 WAFCON finalists, the Atlas Lionesses are breathing with extra confidence to get to this year's semi-final, while the female Eagles want to steal the moment of joy from the Moroccans. This is the quarter-final showdown of the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Morocco takes on Mali this Friday, 18 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, then on SABC 3 at 9 p.m. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
So Taryn, you've just graduated cum laude, but nothing says you're a genius quite like selling your car to WeBuyCars.
Absolutely. My car was an 18th birthday present, and it's time to move on to something a bit more mature.
So where did you hear about WeBuyCars?
All of my friends are using WeBuyCars. I would have had legit FOMO if I hadn't used them. And it was so quick. I did it on my laptop while sending around my CV.
Smart move, Taryn. Graduated and upgraded. WeBuyCars. Geared for success. Geared for you.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So for this next story, let me give credit to the initial reporting of the Herald newspaper. Overcrowded classrooms, strained teachers, and frustrated parents. This is the daily reality at Walmer High School, the only high school in Walmer Township in Gqeberha, Eastern Cape. The school is under immense pressure, with enrollments swelling to 2,300 pupils and classroom numbers reaching over 90 learners per class. You heard right, 90 learners per class, a far cry from the recommended numbers that are below even 40. So a new school, Gqeberha High School, was registered in December 2023 and a site approved, but construction has stalled, and we are told that is due to a lapsed environmental impact assessment and a shortage of key professionals such as quantity surveyors. Let's speak to Lunga Tyani, who is the former principal at Walmer High School. In fact, just recently retired. I believe you retired about a month ago. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. How dire and how bad is the situation in terms of overcrowding and the feeder areas from which pupils are drawn into Walmer High School?
Good morning to Lani and your listeners. First of all, I want to correct this issue of retirement. I'm still in the system.
Oh, you're still in the system?
Yes. My retirement is only next week on Thursday.
Only next
week? Yes. No, not in next week, sorry. In 2 weeks' time, in a fortnight's time.
Okay.
So on the 31st of July, which is on Thursday,
sure,
that will be my last day in the system.
Sure.
Otherwise, I'm still holding the baton.
Gotcha.
I'm still holding the baton. Well, back to your question. I think they would always say that even in success there are also disadvantages, because the reason why we are so much overcrowded, it's because of our consistent matric pass rate and the culture of teaching and learning in our school. Because only last year we were able to attain a 96.2 in our matric, and we have always been above 95%. Mm-hmm. In spite of large numbers. In fact, we were even visited by the Director General, who commended us for having, in fact, for a correlation between a high total enrollment in grade 12 and also a continued upward surge of matric results. The higher the enrollment in grade 12, the higher the percentage it becomes each and every year. So that has been it's drawn a lot of parents registering their kids
Sure.
in our school. But the problem is that this happens to be the only high school in the township. And we have almost 8 feeder schools. Learners who pass grade 7 and they go to grade 8 in our school. That's where the explosion, becomes observable, where we have to absorb high numbers of learners from different feeder schools.
What does that look like practically on the ground in the classrooms? What does it look like and what does it do in
It's a
terms of
wall-to-wall.
how you work?
It's wall-to-wall. It's wall-to-wall, and that becomes even more observable when educators have to mark scripts, when educators have to mark assignments. Then they get so much overwhelmed by a huge workload, having to mark learners in a class that go up to 90, having to mark assignments, having to mark even whatever task that is there for the learners. That becomes so much cumbersome, and it becomes a lot of a pressure on because we are almost bombarded with a lot of submissions that we have to make.
Yeah.
For instance, let us take the issue of exams. We have exams in the first term, and the due dates wherein we have to actually submit all those marks and assessments to the department, and that puts a lot of pressure on our educators.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time and all the best for your retirement in about 2 weeks' time. That's Lunga Kyani, who is the principal of Woma High School. If anybody is listening anywhere, Epondweni, somewhere, what is to be done with this situation? Of course, it's credit to the school that they're doing so well that they become attractive, but at the same time, where are other high schools in that area of Woma to deal with all of these feeder primary schools? Right now, let's go straight to N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 08600 60,000 today.
In our top stories, the MK party responds to the inquiry into the police and a raid at Paulsmoor Correctional Centre. Good morning. MK party leader in Parliament, Dr. John Hlophe, says another commission of inquiry investigating criminal elements cannot be the best option by government. Dr. Hlophe was speaking during the budget vote debate of the presidency. He was responding to the establishment of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry to probe the allegations made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Mkhwanazi alleged Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, who has since been placed on special leave, was linked to persons linked to criminal activities, and top police officials are involved in criminal activities. Hlophe elaborates.
Under your watch, South Africa has become a land of commissions of inquiry without convictions. Endless talk shows designed to pacify the public while looting continues. We talk of a conflicted president.
Meanwhile, President Cyril Ramaphosa says it's important to get to the bottom of claims made by Commissioner Mkhwanazi.
Now, these allegations are serious. They are also untested. It is therefore necessary that we establish the facts through an independent, credible, and thorough process so that we can ensure that there is accountability as well as safeguard public confidence in the police service. It is therefore strange that some people have voiced strong opposition to the establishment of this inquiry. Some have even said that I should take immediate punitive steps against Mr. Senzo Mchunu on the basis of untested allegations.
Prison authorities have conducted a raid at Paulsmoor Correctional Centre in Cape Town as part of nationwide operations aimed at combating contraband and illegal networks within correctional facilities. The raid was led by the National Commissioner, Mahoti Tobagale. He says after searching 398 inmates in 12 prison cells, cell phones, dagga and cash was some of the contraband confiscated.
We are cutting their networks, we are cutting their communication with the outside world, we are also cutting their influence on other inmates within our facilities. That's the only way we can make it a point that when they are inside, they don't continue to interrupt rehabilitation and correctional programs, and they don't continue to disturb the peace that we're supposed to have in correctional facilities.
The Gauteng Department of E-Government has tabled a budget of just over 1.5 billion rand for the 2025-2026 financial year. The department says this investment will drive the continued digital transformation of the province. This came out during the post-budget briefing of several provincial departments at the Gauteng Legislature in Johannesburg. The Provincial Health MEC Nomantunko Moralioko presented the post-budget speech on behalf of the MEC for E-Government, Banginkosi Dlamini.
To boost digital skills in the province, the department will train 7,700 public servants online, award 770 bursaries, and provide ICT skills training to 12,000 young people, especially those in niche areas. In addition, 200 township-based ICT entrepreneurs will receive business support as part of efforts to empower small businesses and promote digital inclusion.
The Reserve Bank Governor Lesija Hanyago says it's difficult to assess the impact of U.S. tariffs on South Africa due to the sectoral tariffs that are imposed, among other factors. The 30% U.S. tariffs on South African goods will be imposed from the 1st of August unless a new trade deal is negotiated. Hanyago was speaking at the G20 Fourth Finance and Central Bank Deputies meeting in Durban.
You must know that there are sectoral tariffs that will be targeting particular industries, and there is the overall tariff. At the moment, South Africa has a tariff of 30%. What we did in our analysis at the beginning of the year was to present a scenario because we couldn't assess exactly how much the tariffs will be, how long they will be in place, and we have seen the uncertainty that the tariffs are on, the tariffs are off. You must make an offer. Here is the new tariff. You are welcome to come and negotiate, bring on a new offer. And so it becomes difficult to understand.
As SABC News celebrates 75 years of existence, we look back at the inner workings from the first SABC News department. One of the first newscasters and founding member of Radio News, affectionately known as Koen Groenewald, looks back at how bulletins were put together.
The news bulletin, which we broadcast at that time, was compiled by SAPA. They had a special broadcast editor, as they called him. He compiled a bulletin, say, of about 5 minutes in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. The bulletin was broadcast exactly as we received it from SAPA. We were not allowed to make any changes. I'm not even talking about factual changes, but no changes whatsoever.
Recapping the top story, the MK party leader in Parliament, Dr. John Hlophe, says another commission of inquiry investigating criminal elements cannot be the best option by government. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
Have you heard the latest news? Vincent, a 40-year-old man, wanted to save on his car insurance premium, so he got a quote from Outsurance. Vincent now saves a massive 990 Rand a month on his 2022 Ford Ranger 2.2 litre. Get a quote today. See how much OUTsurance could save you on your car insurance. Call 0800 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. You always get something out. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
And it's a very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. It's cricket. The Proteas to regroup after their defeat to New Zealand. They've got Zimbabwe on their radar next. And it's soccer news with PSV Eindhoven reportedly set to make a significant move for Orlando Pirates star Relebohile Mofokeng. All the details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. We started Pretoria with a collision on the M1 south of the R21. Pretty heavy coming through from Atterbury Road down through Rigel into that one. Crash on Joburg's Mike 1 south at Marlborough Drive. Heavy from Buccleuch. A crash at Crown, causing delays on the Mike 1 north and the M2 west. Both those highways into the Crown under pressure. And if you're driving into Germiston, just expect a backlog on the M2 going down to Refinery Road. Durban, driving in from the airport. A crash on the N2 just after the Umshloti exit. The N2 north is loaded up as you come up from the M7 through Westwood Mall into the usual roadworks. And there's another breakdown on the N3 between Peterbarrowsburg and Ashburton. So leaving Durban, traffic getting heavy there as well. Cape Town, another breakdown on the N2 inbound. One at Rapenburg is being cleared earlier. This stationary vehicle now inbound just past Jan Smuts. So that's quite slow coming from the airport. And we've got heavy traffic on the N7 this morning from the N2 up passing Langa and then into some new roadworks that have popped up between Epping and Goodwood. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
10 minutes after 7. Good morning to you. Welcome to the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM 104 to 107, but also live on our YouTube channel, live as well on Facebook and on X. It is great to be in your company. I won't lie, I'm feeling the FOMO. I'm feeling the FOMO just watching just the beautiful content that our colleagues at SABC News Channel 404 have produced in terms of reflecting on 75 years of SABC News. They've gotten all these, as many as possible of the former presenters and contributors, producers and the likes to come through and reflect. And of course, they're taking full advantage of that rich archive that we have here at SABC. They're just digging into the archives right now on screen. Leanne talking to Simon Gier, just reflecting on the days when Simon Gier defined the weather, basically, on television. And I did say a bit later on, at about 10 to 8, I'll be in conversation with Makhosini Mkitjwa. And we'll be reflecting on a time when he was at Ukhozi FM, but also then transitioning to be part of the SABC News team that covered the Mandela presidency. Those were difficult and at times uncertain times when, phenomena such as political violence. I do remember that because I was a listener at that point. I do remember that being a key theme that Ukhozi FM and other stations had to grapple with in that transition period. So we'll be looking back with Makhosini Mkitjwa at about 10 to 8. But before we get there, let me tell you what we'll be talking about in this half hour. One, we'll be talking about this, assertion by the Minister in the Presidency for State Security, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, who says there's a risk of a coup, but no attempt that has occurred in the last few days, last few weeks. But there have been plans, and those plans have been foiled. We'll have a conversation with Dr. Yakis Elias from the ISS about that in the next few minutes. And then immediately after that, we'll be talking Eskom tariffs and this whole phenomenon of them selling lesser and lesser electricity, but realizing higher and higher revenue from it, simply because the tariffs have been going up and up in the last decade or so. So that's where we're going over this hour. Do give me a call, 086 000 2032 061 410-4107. In fact, I'd like you to also reflect on your iconic moments, that have been shared with you by SABC News over the last 75 years, right? Do share some of those, what you'll always remember, contribution by SABC News over the decades. All right, let's get the second hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief underway.
Champions need motivation above and beyond winning. South Africa, show your love and support for the WAFCON defending champions by Yana. Witness the CAF Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024 from 5 to 26 July 2025 on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on Sunday, the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, let's start this hour with this story. The risk of a coup d'etat being staged in this country exists, but there has been no attempt at staging it in the past few days or weeks, and that's according to the Minister in the Presidency for State Security, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni. In a startling revelation, Ntshavheni has claimed that the fact that there has not been an actual coup attempt is a product of measures put in place to mitigate the risk, as well as plans foiled by the country's intelligence structures. Here she is in her own words.
One of the risks is the risk of coup d'etat. To say there is a potential risk of a coup d'etat. We have identified it and we've put measures to mitigate against it. So that's why we say to South Africans, there has not been anyone attempting to do a coup in South Africa. In the last few days or in the last few weeks, there has not been anyone attempting to do a coup in South Africa. We can say that, not that they are not people planning, they are, but we're continuously monitoring them and making sure that we deal with those.
All right, so let's get the insights of Dr. Yakis Elias, who is head of the Africa Futures and Innovation, also chairperson of the board at the Institute for Security Studies. Doc, good morning and thank you for your time. What do you make of the minister's assessment? A risk exists, there have been people planning, but there has not been an attempt. Doesn't a risk always exist? Does this really tell us anything new at all?
No, I think these were unfortunate and I think irresponsible remarks by the minister. There is no risk that I think any sane person would think that the SANDF is either capable or planning something like this. Not that, I led various delegations to Europe consisting of MK, SANDF and so on, in SADF in those terms in the early 90s. So I got to know many of the MK and other operatives who today occupy very senior positions within the intelligence community. And they were, of course, placed there, particularly by Jacob Zuma. But to think, if we know the state of the SANDF, to think that there's any remote possibility of them executing a coup d'etat, I think that's just ridiculous.
And that's an important distinction that you make there, Dr. Silias, mentioning the SANDF, because this was mentioned in broad terms. Does this speak to the distinctions between various types of unconstitutional changes of government? If we're talking a coup, in your mind, we would be talking about a plot involving elements within the SANDF.
Yes, that is essentially that's the essential component of when we speak of a coup d'etat, if we look at what has happened in the rest of the continent very often, that there is a military involvement. Now, the main problem, as we all know, there is on the one hand a significant dysfunction and incapacity within the SANDF, But we also know that the main problems really lie within the intelligence community. That was very clearly outlined and set out by the Commission of Inquiry by Professor Sandy Africa after the riots in KwaZulu-Natal, let's call them the Zuma riots. She pointed to the extreme dysfunction and politicization within the intelligence community and made the point that the factionalism within the African National Congress plays a huge role in this, and that's become a national security risk. So I think these issues are coming to the fore in the what I think are very unfortunate remarks by the minister.
Could she have used the wrong term, and perhaps she's worried about unrest escalating to becoming something of an insurrection, as you remember that argument and splitting of hairs between the members of the executive in 2021. Could that be what she's talking about, that she's worried about certain undertones and words being used by people that they think, at least in the executive, may be indicating something along the lines of protest movements escalating to insurrection, if not insurgency?
I think there's a big difference between that kind of challenge, which is clearly a threat. South Africa's got extreme high levels of inequality, poverty, unemployment, frustration, together with the lack of capacity within the security agency. So that is a real threat. And that is, I think, where government should be placing its attention. But I think there is an intellectual and a language leap, terminology leap between that and speaking of a coup d'etat. I think that this is not good for South Africa, for investor confidence, for a government that is trying to rebuild confidence in the country and to attract foreign investment. So I just think it was really. I think that she eventually probably regretted her statement, because I just think it seemed to be so out of kilter and so inappropriate. But it certainly, I think, was ill-advised, and I just can't think that there's any real chance or threat of something like that.
Yeah. Lastly, then, do you believe that having made the statement in the manner that she did, herself and even the president owe South Africans to say a bit more, if not walk back those comments?
Yes, I think so. I think these are serious red lights to foreign investors, to South Africa's trade partners, and I do think these need to be placed in context, because, as I said, they do the country harm, and there is no, I don't know, nobody knows what happens in the intelligence community, and I speak from historical knowledge when I had lots of engagement with the security agencies, when we played a role in facilitating within the security agencies a settlement process in South Africa, and I have no idea what's happening there now, because everything is a secret.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems. Jacob Zuma amalgamated and went against the previous establishment of a foreign and domestic intelligence agency when he established the security agency, state security agency, and that is only going to be changed next year. So we really have no idea of what's happening. There are talks about commissions of inquiry internally, not commissions, investigations about irregularity. But we are very clearly seeing during the Zondo Commission the evidence to the extent to which intelligence funding within the police, to apparently a lesser degree within the military, but certainly within the police, have been used as slush funds for party political factional infighting within the ANC. And we don't know that this is ongoing. So these are all issues that need to be cleared up, and it all goes back to the appointment of capable professionals at the head of the various security agencies within intelligence and so on, so that these are not political appointments, because that's what creates the problem. We saw that very clearly now recently with the challenges with the police, and the most obvious example of that was Jackie Selebi when he came in and literally destroyed South African National Police Service single-handedly because he had no knowledge of what he was dealing with. And we still struggle with those legacies. So removing political interference and appointment in the judiciary, in the police, and possibly even in intelligence, I think is hugely important.
All right. Let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time and your insights. That's Dr. Yake Silias, Head of African Futures and Innovation, also the chairperson of the board at the Institute for Security Studies.
9-time African champions, the Super Falcons are chasing victory to graduate to the semi-finals. But the Copper Queens want to maintain their unbeaten rhythm. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch Nigeria versus Zambia this Friday, 18 July at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Right, let's turn to this story now. Over the past decade, Eskom has seen a dramatic shift in its operational landscape. Despite a sharp drop in electricity sales, its revenue has more than doubled, driven primarily by steep tariff hikes. Someone who's been tracking all of this is Hano Labuskaghni, who is author and journalist at My Broadband. Good morning to you, Hano, and thank you for your time. I suppose from my time when I was doing mathematics in high school, we would talk about inversely proportional. Could we say that the sales of electricity at Eskom are inversely proportional to the revenue that Eskom is realizing, and why is that?
Thank you, Thulasizwe. It's great to be here, and good morning to the listeners. So it's not directly inversely proportional, but there is definitely a case of, the one is swinging one way and the other one is swinging the other way, which is strange. It should not be happening. And the main reason this is happening is because Eskom has a monopoly. It's as simple as that, and the National Energy Regulator of South Africa has failed to protect South Africans against rising electricity costs over the last decade. The thing is, Eskom is always arguing that its increases are cost reflective. It shows its cost of producing electricity goes up. Its submissions to NERSA. But the fact of the matter is, when you have a monopoly, there's no such thing as really the cost argument is a bit of a fallacy, because you don't have any dynamics or factors that influence encourage you to keep your costs down. There's no market dynamics, competition. You don't have competition to force you to innovate and to be efficient. And the one clear example where we can see this is the fact that Eskom's employee complement stands at around 40,000 people, and the World Bank says it should have around 14,000. At one point it had 50,000 employees. So it's got a bloated workforce. And another thing is the cost per employee has surged in the last 30 years. It surged by 976%. And even if you adjust that for inflation, the cost per employee is about 322% higher than in 1994. So that's one of the factors driving up these costs. It's simply, there's no competition for Eskom. It's simply free to increase these tariffs because South Africans are forced to buy its electricity, and that's why you have a situation where its sales have come down 16% in the last 10 years, but its electricity revenue is up 115%. So, yeah, it doesn't look great. It makes one very angry at Eskom, even ignoring the load shedding element.
So, Hano, you touch on an important aspect, because Eskom, as you rightly say, always says the tariff that they ask for is meant to be cost reflective, in that it reflects how much Eskom spends in producing, and distributing the electricity that we then use. So are you saying to us that that's actually a factor of their own doing, that if they were efficient, the cost would not be as high, they wouldn't need to ask for such a high tariff each year?
Yes, most certainly. And I think another example where they were simply completely inept at managing their costs is the Kusile and the Medupi plants. Their budgets are over double what they were supposed to be, and that's amounting to hundreds of billions of rand. And the Medupi and Kusile failures have resulted in then directly, they have to take on more debt, and now they have to service that debt. And to service that debt, when their sales are under pressure, they have to increase tariffs. So it's definitely one of our own failures. It's not really a case of like the broader. You see an example of in recent years, electricity prices spiked or went up in Europe due to the Ukraine war and gas prices, but they've calmed down slightly again. And overall, in the broader context, we see that electricity prices are coming down due to the introduction of renewable power and renewable power getting cheaper, batteries getting cheaper. So it's definitely not reflective of a broader environment. It's something that's out of Eskom's control. It's definitely something that's got directly to do with stuff that is under their control. And you could say the impact of all these job losses at Eskom would be big on the economy, but I think it's any economist with their salt will tell you the impact of Eskom's electricity tariffs on the general population, on you and me, on all of the population has been so bad, it's completely offset by that. So you could easily argue that those jobs that would have been lost, there would have been new jobs created in the economy if the electricity prices were kept under control and those people would still been employed.
Hanno, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Hanno Laboskachny, who is author and journalist at My Broadband.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning. We'll start with cricket. The Proteas batting consultant Ashwell Prince blaming the early wickets for their 21-run loss to New Zealand in their second match of the T20I Tri-Series in Harare. Chasing 174 for the win, South Africa lost the wickets early and ended up being bowled out for 152 in just over 18 overs. Now, the Proteas will have a few days to rest before their next match against Zimbabwe on Sunday, and Prince says it's a welcome break.
No, it'd be nice to have a couple of days off. Obviously, for some of the people who've been here since the test matches, it's been a while. So to have some time off, I think we'll make the most of that, and then we get back going again when we on the next training session.
Meanwhile, South Africa's under-19 men's team will kick off a 3-match youth ODI series against Bangladesh in Benoni today, with head coach Malibongwe Maketa emphasizing player exposure and growth ahead of the 2026 ICC Under-19 World Cup. The series will be followed by a tri-series in Zimbabwe. Soccer, the Dutch giants PSV Eindhoven have reportedly joined the race for Relebohile Mofokeng, the teenage sensation from Orlando Pirates. The 19-year-old attacking midfielder has been turning heads with his composure, creativity and maturity beyond his years. And rugby, the Springbok flank, Kwagga Smith says the Bomb Squad has something to prove against Georgia in Nelspruit on Saturday. Coach Rassie Erasmus has opted for a 5-3 split on the bench for the test at Mbombela Stadium, with props Thomas du Toit and Vincent Koch, hooker Bongi Mbonambi, Lock Archie Sneeman and Smith in the forward contingent.
As players that's filling more than one role, more than one position, filling 3 positions in a game, it's not almost in that week where you get the preparation, it's almost in the camps, when we have camps before we start going into test weeks, where you get that preparation. And that's really important, because when you go into test week, you want to focus on your main position in the camp. So then you have that background, and if something happens, because it's not going to happen every game, it might happen once in every 10 games. So then you'll be able to slot in there.
Well, we'll tackle more sport top of the hour, and that's for the morning brief. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the ANC says it welcomes the establishment of a Judicial Commission of Inquiry to probe allegations made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. The Gauteng Department of Infrastructure Development says the bulk of its 3.6 billion rand budget for the 2025-2026 financial year will be allocated to its public works program. And the Reserve Bank Governor Lesija Hanyago says it's difficult to assess the impact of US tariffs on South Africa due to the sectoral tariffs that are imposed, among other factors. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM. guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Here's a rundown of the hotspots around the country this morning. If you're leaving Pretoria on the N14, the Ben Scuman Highway, crash down by Snake Valley or Trickard Road. Just coming from Euphius on your way down to Jean Avenue. That's all quite heavily backed up. Earlier collision on the Mike 1 South at Marlborough Drive, just before you get to Marlborough Drive. That's the reason for the big pushback right back through Allendale Road. So N1 down to Buccleuch and then onto the Mike 1 on your way to Sandton. Very heavy backlogs today. The Mike 1 coming from the other side of town. Boyson's up to Melrose, up as far as Glenhove Road, fairly slow. And a lot of traffic on the N1, the Western Bypass today, through Malabongwe, up through William Mandela, out towards the Rivonia off-ramp. A little bit busier than you might be expecting on that run through. And the M2 is standing from Heldenace going into Germiston. Big queues down to Refinery Road. Just expect to be asked to queue up there for some time. Durban side, the N3 inbound to Spaghetti Junction's heavy. A truck crash on the M7 at South Coast Road causing some delays. And there's a bottleneck of traffic if you're driving in from Belito this morning around the Mshloti area on the M4 going towards Durban. So we'll keep an eye on that. Bit unusual, that one. Cape Town, the N2 inbound, just slow through the Mowbray Main Road exit. All the breakdowns at Jan Smarts and at Rappenberg, they've all been cleared away, but it's just a busy run through in the rain as well. And the R300, which we've seen this week being busy, is again this morning. Queues on the R300 North, heading up towards the N1 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The business update on SAFM.
All right, for that, let's say good morning once again to Ndauling. Ndauling, let's start with news to do with the South African Post Office, a business undergoing business rescue. We now know what the financial needs will be to try and turn it around.
That's right, Thulas, and this was revealed during a meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, where the Auditor General SA and SAPO's business rescue practitioners, which include Anush Ruplau and Juanito Damos, briefed Parliament on the 2023-2024 audit outcomes. The business rescue practitioners reported that the post office's debt had been reduced from 8.7 billion rands to 1.8 billion rands through a creditor compromise process. However, only 2.4 billion rands has been received in terms of funding so far, leaving a shortfall of 3.8 billion rands. Now, without this funding, the practitioners say key elements of the turnaround plan, including infrastructure upgrades and creditor payments, cannot proceed. And looking at SAPO's financial performance, the groups posted an operating loss of 1.8 billion rands with revenue of 2.6 billion rands, while expenses came in at 4.8 billion rands. Now, as part of the cost-cutting initiatives, the company has also undergone restructuring with 4,342 employees retrenched and branch network reduced from 1,000 to 657.
On this next story, I won't even try to French it. I'll leave that to you, and Dowling. I'll just call it Richmond. Richmond, you're telling us this morning they continue to weather the tough economic conditions.
Yeah, the luxury goods group behind brands like Cartier and Van Cleefs and Apples reported a 6% increase in sales at constant exchange rates to 5.4 billion euros in the first quarter of its financial year. Now, the growth was driven by strong performances in Europe, the Americas, and the Middle East and Africa, offsetting a downbeat showing from Asia. Now, the jewelry sales rose 11% with notable growth in Italy, Germany, and the UAE. Online retail sales also showed robust growth across most regions. Regional highlights include an 11% sales growth in Europe, fueled by local demand and tourist spending, with notable performances, as mentioned, in Italy. In the Americas, sales increased 17%, driven by supportive local demand across all business areas and markets. Now, in terms of brand performance, jewelry maisons saw an 11% rise in sales, marking a third consecutive quarter of double-digit growth, driven by both jewelry and watch product lines. But its specialist watchmakers brand sales there declined 7%, largely due to decreases in China and Hong Kong. Fashion and accessories sales were down 1%, although brands like Peter Miller and Chloe performed well. So a pretty mixed performance from Richemont, but it's really proven to be one of the resilient players in the luxury sector.
So how are the markets looking at this hour, Dowling?
Kicking things off in Asia, markets pulling back this hour, mostly flat. This as traders digest downbeat exports data out of Japan. Total exports there slipped for a second straight month in June, down 0.5%, with exports to the US falling 11.4%. Now, with that, Japanese Nikkei just making it into the green, up 0.19%. Over in Wall Street, earnings season is heating up and traders are assessing the numbers and looking out for how corporate America plans to navigate the tariff environment. And with that, futures are in the red. Lastly, here at home, the JSE all share managed to eke out some gains in yesterday's session, up 0.05%. The rand, in the meantime, remaining below the 17.19 mark, slightly stronger this morning at 17.85 to the greenback.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntauleng Lechela. She'll be back with one more update for you just after 8:30, in which update she'll give you a sense of the kind of trading day you can expect on this Thursday.
2022 WAFCON finalists, the Atlas Lionesses are breathing with extra confidence to get to this year's semi-final, while the female Eagles want to steal the moment of joy from the Moroccans. This is the quarter-final showdown of the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Morocco takes on Mali this Friday, 18 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, then on SABC 3 at 9 p.m. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
All right, I'm a bit distracted this morning. Our eyes, all of us in the studio, our eyes are glued on SABC News, right? And we're just watching all of this great content that they've put out, marking the 75th anniversary of SABC News. Of course, the public broadcaster itself, the SABC, was founded in 1936, but it had its first broadcast of a bulletin on radio in 1950, hence 75 years today. The SABC, and particularly SABC News, have played a central role in documenting and shaping the country's journey from those twilight days of the Union of South Africa to apartheid, through to the dawn of democracy and beyond. During the early 90s, the broadcaster found itself telling a rapidly evolving, highly complex and high-stakes transition from apartheid to democracy and the formative, at times uncertain and tentative strides into democratic governance, which were at times fraught with violence and threats of a derailment of the whole project. So it fell on broadcasters like my next guest, Makhosini Mgitjwa, to navigate these uncertain times, helping manage public anxiety, inform political discourse, and contribute to national reconciliation. Makhosini, good morning. Thank you for agreeing to talk to me about all of this. Take me down memory lane. Your early days at the SABC, especially SABC News and Current Affairs.
Thank you very much, Thulasizwe. Thank you for having me, and good morning to your listeners. Look, I only joined the SABC in 1995. That was over a year after the democracy. And it was in time for the local government, the first local government election in November 1995. And, the challenge there was to tell the story to people about something that, had never happened before, that you have local government elections. And the local government elections that people had at that time were discredited, were regarded as something that people shouldn't have participated in. So now to introduce people the new concept of councillors, what local government is, in relation to national and provincial government. And remember that the first elections in 1994 were about, national and provincial elections and none about local government. So, we have to educate, our listeners about what, local government meant and what they needed to do to ensure that that sphere of government. So yeah, that was around the time that I joined the SABC.
Makosini, there's a bit of a disturbance that occurs from time to time. I don't know whether it's windy where you are. Let's see if we can get that to improve. But tell me, where did your journey start? It started at Ukhozi FM. Am I correct in that recollection? Because I seem to recall that time that there was, of course, it was just after the elections, 1994, but, the country was far from stable in the sense that there were still pockets of violence that were playing themselves out. And the pressure, I seem to recall that many of you broadcasters at the time were under a great deal of pressure. Each sentence you would pronounce was being analyzed for bias in favor of one faction or another.
Certainly. I mean, you remember it was quite a complex time. Remember that KwaZulu-Natal did not have local government elections in 1995. They would only have them in 1996 because of the problems, many problems that existed at the time. So it was a very, very difficult time for us as journalists, and also because of the violence that had taken place and the divisions that existed between political parties, particularly the ANC and the IFP in KwaZulu-Natal and in some places in Gauteng. There were those tensions that one had to navigate when reporting. There was always someone looking out to see if you are biased in favor of one or the other. And that made the work of being a journalist a very, very difficult one. There was also the resistance that was coming from some sections in the white community, such as the AWB, that were opposed to the processes that were happening at the time. And all of that also needed to be navigated, particularly as a black reporter, if you found yourself having to report on such stories.
But I guess the iconic moments for me, when I really was now paying attention to your career, was now the Mandela presidency into the Thabo Mbeki presidency. Tell me about because it seemed to me as if there was no playbook by which to navigate telling the story of South Africa on the global stage, navigating diplomacy and the likes. Tell me about that and the SABC affording you that opportunity to be part of the presidential call.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question, Thulasizwe. I'm very much grateful to the SABC. Actually, in fact, I doubt that people would know of a Makhosini Nkosi or Makhosini Mkhichwa if it hadn't been the SABC that gave me an opportunity at that time, and I remain eternally grateful for that. And I'll start with when I started, I was a producer and presenter of a current affairs show. It was Radio Zulu then. It would only become Ukhozi FM in 1996, when most of the stations changed, and so when from being Radio Xhosa, etc., etc. Sorry, I forgot the question that you asked. I'm sorry.
I was asking about being part of the presidential corps,
yes,
because
yes,
you were
yes,
witness to history and South Africa's first strides on the global stage of diplomacy.
Yes, certainly. There'll be two stories that I want to tell on that one. First, the great opportunity that I had was when I was asked by Zalta Lekhraj, who was the secretary to Mr. Mandela, after a story that I had covered. And she said to me, please don't go, Makhosini, Kulu would like to see you. Can you imagine, Thulasizwe, I'm sitting in this room, I've been told that I must wait because Nelson Mandela wants to see me. The person that many people wanted to see, he wanted to see me. And thinking to myself that during this time of Nelson Mandela, from this minute up to this minute of this day, he gave himself time to sit down and talk to me. And he was inviting me to cover his stories. He was doing a lot of philanthropic work, and he needed the SABC to assist him because he said the people that were donating monies to the Nelson Mandela Foundation or assisting him to build the schools and clinics and other things that the community needed. They did those things partly because they wanted to be seen with him on television, and that we had to, help him with that. And it was quite a difficult thing because it blurred the line between journalism and public relations.
Yeah.
But such was the role of the SABC and its importance, because it could reach everywhere that other broadcasters and media organizations couldn't reach. And on the other hand, I had the opportunity to cover President Mbeki as part of the presidential call that was formally formulated, working with the presidency itself. We were introduced to being a presidential correspondent. And it was at the time really where South Africa was punching above its weight in the international arena. I remember there was a time when President Mbeki was addressing the United Nations General Assembly. He was the third speaker after the President of Brazil, the President of America, and the next president was the President of South Africa. And when you walk out of the United Nations headquarters, there is the Nelson and Winnie Mandela corner, which told you that at that time South Africa was punching above its weight, and the SABC was critical for that. Because one of the interesting things that people did not appreciate about reporting for the SABC at that particular time, particularly when it came to the activities of the South African government in the continent, was that most of the countries on the African continent did not have public broadcasters, but they had state broadcasters. So they would confront the president, either it's Nelson Mandela or Thabo Mbeki, and say, your TV station reported this, which means that they got orders from you. That was because other state broadcasters on the continent got orders from politicians. So we had to navigate that. On one hand, report the way we should be reporting, but also be sensitive to that.
Right.
We are viewed as a state broadcaster elsewhere.
Makhosini, let's, as a parting shot, let me just get your reflections on how do we make sure that the next 75 years of SABC News is great? What are the conversations that are playing out in your mind? And I suppose I could nudge you in a way, because for me, the question around the funding model of the SABC is one that perplexes me. Why in 30 years, since democracy, 31 years, we've just never been able to figure it out. But that's just me. I don't know, you could have your own key theme that you think will be key in taking the SABC forward.
My view, Thulasizwe, and thank you very much for that question. My view is that the SABC News in particular, is the biggest news organization on the continent, right? And let's leave the continent and focus on South Africa. There is no square meter of South Africa that is not reached by the SABC through SABC Radio and to other platforms. So I think the SABC, in my view, if it is going to be successful going forward, it should not just focus on being a content producer, but it must also focus on being a platform. Because, I mean, if there is no square meter of the country that you can't reach, even if people were to be given satellite internet, they still would not afford it. But they can afford a radio, and they don't have to pay to receive a radio signal. I think the SABC has a big role to play in the future if it positions itself properly. And I think the question of the funding of the SABC is one that correctly perspectives you, and it also frustrates other people as well. That why can't a decision be taken that this is how the SABC is going to be funded so that it can be sustainable? Because it looks like, there is sometimes politicians want to squeeze the SABC so that it behaves in a certain way, and then they can fund it the way it's supposed to be funded. And it shouldn't be that way. It must remain independent. It must be a public broadcaster, and never should it be a state broadcaster.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for your reflections there. That's Makhosini Mkitwa, independent political and social commentator, but of course with his roots in broadcasting here at the SABC.
Champions need motivation above and beyond winning. South Africa, show your love and support for the WAFCON defending champions Banyana Banyana. Witness the CAF Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024 from 5 to 26 July 2025 on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Yeah, it being a special day, let's do the traffic slightly differently. Let me come in there, Rob. Good morning to you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Rob, it's the 75th anniversary of SABC News, and we thought you've been an integral part of telling the news story, right? Because part of the traffic sometimes actually makes major news. Just your own reflections. I seem to have recollections of first hearing you on this very station many, many years ago.
Yeah, many years ago. It was back in the days of John Perlman and Nikiwe Bakicha when I first joined. Mm-hmm. And that's going back quite some time. Probably have my own anniversary coming up. But, you know, traffic news and the collection of news, we've really been right at the forefront of much of the changing technology. You know, if you think back, you know, to gather traffic news, we had to put aircraft in the sky, fixed-wing aircraft or helicopters, and buzz around and sort of look for things, because that was really the only sort of sight you could have on something. This is pre-cell phone days. The younger listeners will be scratching their head and go, what's he talking about? But pre-cell phone day, so we used to have, you know, we used to fly around, and then of course the advent of the cell phone, that meant that the listener could call and say, oh Rob, there's a crash here, 4 vehicles involved just down the road from the church opposite the sports field. So we'd of course take that and broadcast it in that style, and people would think, oh, he's been everywhere, he knows everything, he even knows that little church and sport field. So that was really awesome. And then we had the advent of the real times, the ability to track speeds in real time, plotted on maps, so we could look at maps and see an incident and then give the impact of the traffic behind that. And then, of course, the social media. And I guess these days it really is for us a combination of those technologies, the real times, plus the advent of social media. That's certainly where we gather all the content from the listeners, if you like. If they need to interact with us, it's straight onto WhatsApp or straight onto Twitter or some social media platform to interact. So that's the sort of changing technology from almost nothing when I started to pretty much all you need and more these days.
Yeah. Just lastly from me, Rob, how do you frame the product that you deliver in your own mind? What value does it add to the listener? Because I've seen people who will see an incident and be caught up in an incident but not really sure until they've heard from you. In fact, the case in point was yesterday near Makhubas Kloof. We were getting a lot of people asking us to ask you because you've become an integral part of how they plan their day.
Yeah, and that's despite us mentioning Makhubas Kloof every 20 minutes on the radio. But how would you know, it's an art, really, because you've got to bring a bit of forecasting in. Yes, there can be a crash there or a breakdown or something with an impact, but, you know, what time of the day is it? What are the volumes like? You know, is it school holidays? Is it not school holidays? And you sort of forecast a little bit. It's no point sort of giving the precise what it is at that moment. You've got to bring a little bit of sort of forward planning and forecasting into it as well, because, you know, the impact will run on. There will be more traffic coming into the situation. It will become a bigger deal. And the other thing is trying to open up some alternative route options as well. You might often hear us say, if you're driving into Cape Town, for example, there's a crash on the N2 there, but Rappenberg Road or Klipfontein Road or Govan and Becky look better options, you know. So we sort of, you know, it's sort of a whole package, if you like, not just there's the incident, but there's the incident, there's the impact, and there's your way out of it.
Yeah. All right, having said all of that then, Rob, how is it looking this morning?
Oh, well, it's busy this morning. We've got a lot of people asking about what's going on the N1 Mike 1 this morning, coming through Midrand down into Joburg. It's a much earlier collision scene at Marlborough Drive, and that's why the traffic coming into Sandton's backed up all the way almost to Olifantsfontein on the M1 South. Roadworks on the R21 between Bobsfontein and Benoni, holding up on your way to the airport. That's quite a heavy delay. And a crash coming out of Pretoria, the N14, backed up just south of Euphius Road into that collision. Coming in from the airport on Durban side, there's a bit of traffic on the M4 around Mshloti this morning. There's also a crash on the N2 heading to the airport before Gateway, so that's quite heavy from Komashi, and a crash on the N3 inbound at Spaghetti Junction, and that's the reason why it's dreadfully slow coming in from the Pinetown area. Cape Town, just a reminder, it is wet this morning. Roads are a little bit busier because of the conditions. Rain until about lunchtime today. The busiest of the highways, the R300 again, backlogging through Brackenfell up towards the N1 highway, and the N2 fairly slow coming through from Langa side towards Hospital Bend. All the obstructions on the N2 have cleared. It's just pressure of traffic. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, so just one last thing to be said about how seriously Rob takes you and the work that he does. He actually has a whole studio set up at home, right? The way I understand it. From where he works at home or wherever, at his office, he's got an entire studio set up. You will see it when he does those updates on SABC. So that's how seriously he's been taking what he does over the years. In fact, having said that, then let me take one voice note that reflects on the 75th anniversary of SABC News.
Hola, Bratula, how's it, my brother? I hope you're right, man. Happy 75 years.
Yeah.
Man, I was introduced into SAFM by Sakim Kabadeli on the afternoons. And on Sundays, I always listen to this guy, Nailu Pondwan.
Yes.
Ah, man, I learned a lot from Nai. That
Nice.
guy. He should attend that program again.
Yeah.
That Sunday programs again, please.
Really nice. I mean, and that's part of it, really. The big names, the various people who at various points have been, have sat in this chair where I sit today, and across the SABC, really, they've been a part of our journeys interpreting major events. The names that you mentioned, Nailo Pondwana, Sikim Kabateli, all of those. I've got to share one thing with you while you mention the big names here. On the 6th floor here at SAFM, there's a portrait that has been put there of the late Xolani Kwala. And I when I first came here and I saw that, it really touched me and moved me because, you'll know the giant that Xolani Kwala was in terms of broadcasting. And for him to be honored in that way by the station, I think that really means a lot. All right, let me take other voice notes. This one has to do with the prisoner transfer between the United States and Eswatini.
Good morning, Thulasizwe and FM listeners. Those prisoners sent to Eswatini, South African security agency must be very, very careful. They might be well-trained mercenaries with the intention of invading South Africa anytime. South African government must be very, very careful. It's patience hour in Vereniging.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot to analyze there. I mean, the Eswatini government says they are not there permanently. They're just there. They'll be transferred to their own countries. But there's been an official in the United States that has been quoted. In fact, it's the U.S. Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security, Tricia McLaughlin, who was saying that, these people are in her words, quote unquote, uniquely barbaric, that their home countries refused to take them back. So which one is it? Are they in transit, stopping over in Eswatini, heading on over to their own countries, or are they, quote unquote, uniquely barbaric, that their home countries refused to take them back? And also, what's this transit? Why do you need to go to Eswatini if you are this prisoner from Jamaica? Why do you need to leave the United States, fly to Eswatini, and then later on be flown to? Such a perplexing story. All right, let's go straight to N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 08600 60,000 today.
In our top stories, the ANC responds to the inquiry into the police and a raid at Paulsmoor Correctional Centre. Good morning. The ANC says it welcomes the establishment of a Judicial Commission of Inquiry to probe allegations made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Mkhwanazi alleged the Police Minister, Senzo Mchunu, who has been placed on special leave, is linked to persons involved in criminal activities. ANC Chief Whip Mdumiseni Ntuli says there was no better option for President Cyril Ramaphosa than to announce a Judicial Commission of Inquiry.
There was absolutely no better way, Comrade President, rather than setting up an investigation led by a judge as a legitimate platform through which the issues can be ventilated in order to ascertain the veracity or otherwise of these obviously very grave allegations.
Meanwhile, the EFF criticised the fact that Mkhunu was not fired amid the allegations made by Mkhwanazi, EFF MP Nontando Nolutsungu.
As we stand here, Minister Mkhunu was not fired. He was not arrested. He was put on special leave, something that the president has no powers to do. This has been another character trait of the Ramaphosa presidency, akin to a dictatorship where he conducts himself outside of the confines of the constitution.
Prison authorities have conducted a raid at Paulsmoor Correctional Centre in Cape Town as part of nationwide operations aimed at combating contraband and illegal networks within correctional facilities. The raid was led by the National Commissioner, Makgoti Tobagale. He says after searching 398 inmates in 12 prison cells, cell phones, dagga and cash were some of the contraband confiscated.
We are cutting their networks, we are cutting their communication with the outside world, we are also cutting their influence on other inmates within our facilities. That's the only way we can make it a point that when they are inside, they don't continue to interrupt rehabilitation and correctional programs, and they don't continue to disturb the peace that we're supposed to have in correctional facilities.
The Gauteng Department of Infrastructure Development says the bulk of its 3.6 billion rand budget for the 2025-2026 financial year will be allocated to its public works program. 2.7 billion rand has been allocated to infrastructure development programs, while 669 million rand has been allocated to its administration program. A further 196 million rand will be used to fund its expanded public works program. MEC Jacob Mamabolo.
I just want to indicate that the overarching focus of our budget will be to make sure that we support the province-wide turnaround of municipalities. We had a summit last year, 23rd, 24th. There are resolutions that have been adopted by 500 delegates. And now we're in a better position to implement and roll out our turnaround strategy.
The Reserve Bank Governor, Lesija Kganyago, says it's difficult to assess the impact of U.S. tariffs on South Africa due to the sectoral tariffs that are imposed among other factors. The 30% U.S. tariffs on South African goods will be imposed from the 1st of August unless a new trade deal is negotiated. Kganyago says the tariff increases will most likely affect the automotive and agricultural sectors. Kganyago was speaking at the G20 Fourth Finance and Central Bank Deputies meeting in Durban.
You must know that there are sectoral tariffs that will be targeting particular industries, and there is the overall tariff. At the moment, South Africa has a tariff of 30%. What we did in our analysis at the beginning of the year was to present a scenario because we couldn't assess exactly how much the tariffs will be, how long they will be in place, and we have seen the uncertainty that the tariffs are on, the tariffs are off. You must make an offer. Here is the new tariff. You are welcome to come and negotiate, bring on a new offer. And so it becomes difficult to understand.
And today, SABC News looks back at its 75-year journey. We're tracking down the evolution of SABC News and its impact on the lives of millions of South Africans. The Director of News Services, responsible for all radio news broadcast and TV services in 1977, Jan van Zyl, elaborates on how news was sourced by the SABC across the globe.
The overseas agencies we use are the well-known ones, Reuters, Associated Press, United Press International, Agence France Presse, and Deutsche Presseagentur.
And also SAPA, of course, the South African Press.
And naturally our internal one, SAPA, which is a pooled service, gleaning its news reports from the newspapers of the country.
Recapping the top story, the ANC says it welcomes the establishment of a Judicial Commission of Inquiry to probe allegations made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
You are the poster child, the biggest saver we've ever had.
I decided that I would contact Outsurance and let them work out what they could do for me.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, big saving. 2,794 Rand a month.
That's over 33,000 Rand a year.
And it was the easiest switch ever. Real people helping real people get real deals.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
And it's a very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. It's rugby. We'll focus on Kwagga Smith back in the Springbok spotlight. And we'll also bring you some action later today. South Africa's under-19 men's team will kick off their 3-match youth ODI series against Bangladesh in Benoni today. All this and more just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A very good morning. Still heading on the N1 Mike 1. So that's the N1 through Midrand onto the Mike 1 down into Sandton. It's a crash that we've been reporting on since early this morning. Mike 1 at Marlborough Drive, and that traffic all the way back beyond the new road exit. A breakdown on the N3 at Modderfontein, causing delays getting up from Giluli's. Crash on the Mike 1 near 11th Avenue, Houghton area. So that's heavy coming through from Boysons. That run up through Central Joburg, Boysons, Braamfontein, Parktown on your way towards Melrose, all heavily backed up. R21 roadworks towards the Benoni exit causing delays for airport-bound motorists. The N14 leaving Pretoria, crash before Jean Avenue, just after Eupheus Road. You'll pick up that queue. Into Durban this morning, N3 very slow, a crash at Spaghetti Junction. Backlogs from the Pinetown area. And if you're driving Cape Town, the R300, again, that's slow as it has been this week, just up through Brackenfell towards the N1 highway. The N2 inbound, all the incidents have been cleared, but there's a backlog from Langa through Hospital Bends. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 8. Welcome to the third hour of the Morning Brief on this Thursday. It is absolutely great to be in your company this morning. As I said earlier on, there's a TV screen in our studio, naturally. And I won't repeat it again. I'm just completely distracted, just watching our colleagues do exceptional work and just going deep into the archives, marking 75 years of SABC News. But among the other stories that we've been reflecting upon is the statement by the Minister in the Presidency for State Security, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni. And the way I understand it is the risk exists of a coup in the country. There have been plans, but those plans have been foiled. But, there has been no actual attempt. And I think she said in the last few days or last few weeks. Makes me wonder, last few years, what about that aspect of things? So many people reflecting on that statement. Let me read one or two messages that have come through. Someone says, it was a very reckless statement by Ms. Ntshavheni. I think it was an attempt at deflecting the Mkhwanazi saga. It is there is no counterintelligence to reveal that kind of information, even if this makes you believe that the threat exists. So that's what one person says, that basically it was an attempt to deflect from the Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi saga. Let me then read this one. Someone here says, we generally don't want to hear from intelligence, especially crazy utterances like that of the minister. Of course, there'll be crazy people thinking they can take on the army and police because that is what it will take to have a proper coup. Strange utterances from the minister. I mean, if she wanted to address the peaceful march from yesterday, and then she should have straight talked about that, not meandering and then eventually talking herself into this mess. That is from Letu in Gqeberha, and then Letu going on to qualify and say, I meant we don't want to hear from them because they do quiet work, hence we call them agents and spooks. And I think that makes a great deal of sense. And I wanted to reflect on this one. Someone who holds a counter view that has to do with, the conversation we had with Yaki Silias a bit earlier on. I'm battling. Yeah, here's the message that I wanted to reflect. This person says, your speaker failed to mention Bolhazer statement last week that their security companies are already mobilized in support of Mkhwanazi, and recently security companies participated in the Mkhwanazi march. But in fact, I wanted to go to Denzel in Cape Town. I wanted to go to your more substantive point where you were saying that Yaki Silias failed to cite many historic reports about the far-right organizations who planned a coup and terror plans during 2016 and 2017. You're saying that it peaked around that time, and that the far-right social media platforms like the Said Worsters and Marula used to promote far-right terrorist planning discussions, and so on and on. And I'll be taking more of your calls reflecting on that statement, but also any other matters that may be exercising your mind this morning. So let's get the third hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief underway.
Banyana want to remind the continent that they are the African reigning champions for a good reason. They believe they will navigate an ideal path to the last four. Yet the Teranga Lionesses want to roar with a top-class game plan. This is the quarterfinal clash of the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. South Africa versus Senegal, the Saturday 19 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 3 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC radio stations at 9 p.m. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
We love rating things. Our phones, our cars, but our health? Your health lets you do what you love with the people you love. So who are you staying healthy for, and how can you improve your health? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that helps you live a healthier, more rewarding, longer life with regular health checks. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guardrisk Life, a licensed life insurer, FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, let me start with a call from Linda in Boksburg. Good morning to you, Linda.
Good morning to you, Thulasizwe.
Please go ahead.
Thulasizwe, firstly, let me say the level of incompetency of our politicians, and especially those that are in cabinet, the ministers, is exasperating, to say the least. You get exasperated. You get so angry at times you don't even have an energy to say anything further. I mean, Minister Chaveni's utterances are a disgrace, to say the least. You can't have a minister sitting in high position in the office of the presidency being such reckless, making such reckless statements about a possible coup d'etat or something that they foiled, when there is no truth in such. South Africa is a sophisticated democracy when it comes to institutions and basically measures that can balance and check how things are operating. You cannot have, I mean, our SNDF, the South African National Defence Force, for all its flaws, it's a completely apolitical institution. There are no political ambitions within the SNDF.
Sure.
If anyone says that, then is lying. Even the so-called right-wing fanatics that are dreaming about taking over the country and taking us back to, they have no such ability. Even if you don't monitor them, they have no such ability. It's a reckless, it's a clear sheer incompetency. you want to, I don't know, it's just wanting to be seen, wanting to say something in the midst of confusion, in the midst of a country where we're sitting in a mess because of the incompetence of government.
All right, Linda, let's leave it there for this morning. That's Linda in Boksburg. It takes me back to that point that they would need to say more now. Now that the minister has put this out into the public domain, they owe the country to say more. What coup plans were foiled and where are the suspects? Because I imagine if you're foiling a coup plot or a plan, you then arrest people. When are they appearing in court? What's happening? What was it all about? And I suppose that really is, take us into your confidence now that you've put this out into the public domain. Eddie in Cape Town, good morning to you. Also on the same issue.
Yes, good morning, Thulas, and to the listeners. Thulas, I think if you can listen very well to this minister, what she's talking, she's referring to the Mkonas himself. That is the one that is the one that is planning to do the coup, did that. Because for the ANC, they don't trust KZN. You must know that. Because there is where their main problem is, you know. So anything that is coming from KZN to them is something they cannot trust.
Eddie, I don't know if I agree with you. Hey, you'll need to convince me. It's a bit of a leap to think that she thinks Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi is the one planning a coup. It's a bit of a leap. Convince me. What led you to that conclusion?
Because remember, this address was while the president was not in the country, was away. You know, and most of the coup happens in this way. When the president is outside the country, then people take over because the president is out. So even in the July unrest, you'll find that also Ramaphosa called it the attempted coup. You know, yes. So for me, it is even this commission that has been established.
Yeah,
it's targeting this Mkhwanazi himself. It's not targeting.
All right. Interesting take. All right, sure. Eddie, thank you for that. That's Eddie in Cape Town. Let me go to Mngobi in Middleburg. Good morning to you, Mngobi.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm good, sir. I'm good, sir. Yes. On my understanding and what I see happening in South Africa, there's a lot of things that are going wrong that I feel are being hidden by the ANC and the government. So I feel on my side, I don't mind if the coup were to happen. Because now, even somehow, I've listened to a speech of, I think it's head of SANDF, saying that we had a protection of Mickey Mouse. So it's also such statements which reveal that we're not protected as a country. They also need to have a say in the South African democratic world to raise understanding that they also need to have finances to get protection for South Africans. And also us as community of South Africa, we also need to raise our voices so that you could be heard. The government can realize that it's no better.
Mngobi, please say more for me about you saying you don't mind if there were to be a coup in South Africa. What do you mean by that? Do you really have a full understanding? I take it you are hoping that it would be a bloodless coup, but that's not guaranteed. There could be a lot of bloodshed in that process. Is that what you're hoping for? That it would play out in that way?
No, I don't want it to be a bloodshedding. Or some people have to die because of that.
That's what a coup entails in many instances.
Yes, but for us, for me, I feel like there should be put it in a specific statement, a national shutdown, where businesses, workers, everybody should put a stand and march in the roads and just to raise their voices that they're tired.
But that's proper. That's fine. That's protest. That's not a coup. I want us to be clear about the concepts we are talking about. I guess you are talking about sustained protest action as opposed to a coup.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Ngobi, thank you for your call this morning.
Thank you, sir.
That's Ngobi out in Middleburg there. I'll make time and we'll take more of your calls a bit later on.
Spar brings you super savings. Get 200-gram Baker's Red Label cream biscuits. Buy any two for 38 Rand. Plus 100 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Or 400-gram Black Cat peanut butter, excluding no sugar, for 34.99 and save 15 Rand. Plus, you could win your share of 6 million Rand in instant cash. Prices valid until 21 July 2025. While stocks last. T's and C's apply.
Are you looking for the best savings on spectacles? At Specsavers, enjoy 1,500 Rand off when you get tested at South Africa's trusted and most established optical group. Get 1,500 Rand off all frames in store, or use your 1,500 Rand off on our leading lens enhancements, such as drive light lenses that reduce artificial glare whilst driving. Book online or call your nearest store today. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
It's fire, flavor, and fierce competition on the Tastemaster SA this Tuesday evening at 7:30 on SABC2. The semi-finals heat up as the final three transform the humble braai into a gourmet three-course showstopper, with Chef Sean Scrooby turning up the pressure. Who will flame out and who will sear their place in the grand finale? The Tastemaster SA, Tuesday evenings at 7:30, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. on SABC2.
2022 WAFCON finalists, the Atlas Lionesses are breathing with extra confidence to get to this year's semi-final, while the female Eagles want to steal the moment of joy from the Moroccans. This is the quarter-final showdown of the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Morocco takes on Mali this Friday, 18 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, then on SABC 3 at 9 p.m. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, a follow-up on that story around foot and mouth disease and the outbreak. A fresh outbreak of foot and mouth disease in the Moqaka local municipality near Kroonstad in the Free State. That has reignited concerns over the stability of the country's agricultural disease containment strategy. Despite recent progress in containing previous outbreaks, the resurgence of FMD, foot and mouth disease, serves as a stark reminder of the ongoing threat the disease poses to the country's livestock industry. Let's get an industry perspective now. Devald Olivier is CEO of the Red Meat Industry Services. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. I was saying yesterday to the Department of Agriculture, DDG, that it seemed there was a bit of progress that was being registered, the lifting of restrictions in parts of the Eastern Cape and Limpopo. What's gone wrong? Why are we seeing this new outbreak in the Free State now?
Morning, Thulasizwe. Thank you for having me. I think the biggest concern that we have in what's going wrong is the fact is people need to live, firstly. I mean, people need to buy clothes, they sell cattle, people need to buy food. There's a new, the school term is starting, there's things that needs to happen, and it's winter time. I mean, we see in winter time that this disease obviously resurfaces a lot during winter times. This is not, and I think we need to change our mindset with regards to foot and mouth disease and maybe a lot of other diseases within the South African context with livestock and many other things. We're not going to eradicate foot and mouth disease within the South African context and, for that matter, Africa. We need to manage the disease. And I think our management needs to be better rather than to have the focus on trying to eradicate it. Eradication is not going to happen with porous borders. We're not an island. If we were an island where we can lock ourselves in and not be part of Africa, that would have been something totally different. But we are part of Africa, and it is in Africa.
Yeah. So you're saying it's about containment and management as opposed to complete eradication. The sense I got yesterday from the DDG, from the Department of Agriculture, was a sense of, frustration by a lack of cooperation among some farmers in terms of the restrictions on the movement of cattle. If I recall correctly, our conversation, it seemed to suggest that clearly this cattle had been moved from elsewhere into that area of Mokaka, which now has an outbreak. How do you explain that?
I think, yes. I think it can be sometimes cattle, but we have a disregard for the spread of the disease by people. Like we call it, to make it simple, mechanical transfer. People are oblivious to the fact that this is a highly contagious disease. I mean, if I had been in contact with cattle, for example, in an area where there's currently an outbreak or a positive, and I'm just close to it in proximity, maybe some of the manure and so on, and I move to my farm, it's not necessarily always nose-to-nose contact by movement of cattle. It can also be mechanical. Unfortunately, I think the big thing is we haven't done enough research in the past 15 to 20 years on our disease, because our disease has definitely evolved, the way that it operates. We also see that this disease is very, in veterinarian terms, subclinical. You cannot necessarily see it with the naked eye. You need to maybe draw blood to understand whether or not it's there. And that actually worsens the problem.
Lastly,
maybe just to add to it, it is a frustration. The fact is a frustration that people do not necessarily want to follow the law. That there are certain requirements put in place, and people, and it's not all of them, and it's not all the farmers, it's not all the contractors, but there are people who bypass these systems.
All right. Lastly, and very quickly, Devald, what's the impact on industry? What is it looking like, and can industry survive these outbreaks?
Yeah, we will survive the outbreak. From agriculture, agriculturists, farmers, they're strong, they will survive this. The problem is each time it happens, it sets us back. It erodes our product in the sense that it seems like we're not doing enough. However, that being said, we will survive this.
All right.
We will get through this, and we'll find answers. We're looking forward to our Indaba on Monday and Tuesday next week with the Minister and the rest of the department. We will find answers. All
right. Thank you for that. Devald Olivier is the CEO of the Red Meat Industry Services.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning. Let's start with rugby. The tenacious flanker Kwagga Smith has been named in the box squad for the July internationals, reinforcing South Africa's famed bench unit. Here's Smith now, who's known for his explosive impact and versatility.
As players that's filling more than one role, more than one position, filling 3 positions in a game, it's not almost in that week where you get the preparation, it's almost in the camps, when we have camps before we start going into test weeks, where you get that preparation. And that's really important, because when you go into test week, you want to focus on your main position in the camp. So then you have that background, and if something happens, because it's not going to happen every game, it might happen once in every 10 games. So then you'll be able to slot in there.
We've also got cricket action. South Africa's under-19 men's team kicking off their 3-match youth ODI series against Bangladesh in Benoni today. The series will be followed by a tri-series in Zimbabwe, forming part of the squad's final preparations for next month's tournament in Namibia and Zimbabwe, which is the 2026 ICC Under-19 World Cup. Cycling defending champion Tadej Pogačar suffered a crash on the 11th stage of the Tour de France moments before a protester disrupted the sprint finish, where Norway's Jonas Abramson claimed his first Tour stage victory. Here's Abramson.
Yes, I broke the collarbone 4 weeks ago in Belgium Tour, and I was crying in the hospital because I think I was not riding Tour de France. But the day after, I was on the home trainer and hope I can go to the Tour de France. And every day I did everything I could to come back. And here I'm standing in Tour de France and win a stage is amazing.
On to boxing, the former world champion Manny Pacquiao is embracing his underdog status. He's getting ready to turn back the clock. He steps out of retirement to face WBC welterweight champion It's Mario Barrios in a showdown at the MGM Grand.
The fans might be worried about my condition, but that's what I need to prove it, that I'm not that kind of fighter that lazy or need to train, but I'm a fighter that I can work hard as I used to before. I'm pretty sure that this coming Saturday is going to be a lot of action and the fans will be happy.
And that's a wrap of the Morning Brief Sport. It's John Henniker back in the ring at 12:30. For more, I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, 3 people have been shot dead and 2 others wounded during a shooting in Gugulethu on the Cape Flats. Police spokesperson Andre Trout says they responded to the incident in Muletsane Street in New Crossroads last night. President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed the Tshwane University of Technology Vice-Chancellor, Professor Tiniko Maluleke, and former South African politician Rolf Meyer as co-chairs of the upcoming National Dialogue. And Syria says its army has begun to withdraw from the city of Zuweda. More than 350 people have died since last weekend, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Coming out of Pretoria, still a crash on the N14 between Euphues Road and Jean Avenue. So on your way to Centurion, it's all very slow. The N1 onto the M1's been a real mission this morning. Traffic backlogging from New Road all the way down through Buccleuch down to Woodmead Drive. And a crash on the N3 North ramp to the N12 East at Galulis, causing delays on that N3 up through Bedford. Also, if you're coming off the N3 to Germiston, just a reminder of the heavy backlog on the M2 down to Refinery Road. Durban, the crash scene, N3 inbound at Spaghetti Junction, that's being cleared. There's just been a breakdown on the N2 in the usual spot, southbound before 4 levels, so that's likely to be slow. Victoria embankment into the roadworks as you come off the M4 Southern Freeway into the city centre. That's a little bit heavier than you might be expecting. And Cape Town, some crashes on the N1 this morning, inbound at Plattekloof, inbound after the N7 towards Sable Road, and then just congested through to the city centre. So really, from sort of Plattekloof Hill all the way through, plenty of traffic on the N1 inbound. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
All right, good morning to you once again in Dowling. Tell me about BankServe Africa and their optimism about the economy.
Mm-hmm. Now, this comes after the release of its Economic Transactions Index for June, which suggests improving economic activity. The index rose to 139.1 in June from 138.5 in May. The index tracks the real value of electronic transactions processed through the country's largest automated payments clearing house, which is BankServe Africa. It also tracks both business and household transactions. Now, according to independent economist Elise Kruger, the upward trend acts as early indications for improved productivity, suggesting that the economy could expand in the second quarter. Kruger also pointed to a recovery in mining and manufacturing sectors, saying these industries will likely contribute more positively to the economy. Now, despite the optimism, global uncertainties still pose risks to the outlook. Renewed uncertainty surrounding those U.S. tariffs could impact confidence and investments, potentially affecting the longer-term growth forecasts. On the other hand, elevated gold prices and lower international oil prices could offset weaker export demand, while some commodities like PGMs are exempt from U.S. tariffs, supporting mining revenues. And so Kruger expects growth of 0.6% for the second quarter.
Okay, that's interesting. Also on the upside, we're hearing it's retail sales for the month of May.
Retail activity really continuing to be upbeat. Another month of gains. Sales jumping 4.2% in. Clothing and general dealers were the key drivers of this growth, with clothing sales rising 12.5% and contributing significantly to the overall increase. Economists are pointing to the beginning of winter, saying the uptick in clothing sales was likely due to seasons changing. General dealers also performed well, posting a 3.6% rise. On a month-on-month basis, retail sales edged up 0.1% in May, while the 3-month period ending in May saw a 3.5% increase in retail sales compared to the same period last year. Clothing retailers and general dealers were again the main contributors to this growth. According to Alna Mulman, head of SA Macroeconomic Research at Standard Bank Group, consumers are benefiting from several tailwinds. Really, the usuals, including lower fuel prices and interest rate cuts. But she expects consumer spending growth to moderate in the coming months due to anticipated inflation increases. We've already started seeing a slight rise in food inflation, in part on the back of higher beef prices as the foot and mouth disease continues to bite. We will get a clearer picture on inflation next week. The consumer prices print due next Wednesday, just a week before the MPC rates decision.
So with everything we've said in the last 3 hours in Dowling, what can we expect on the markets?
So local markets likely to be in the green at the open. Those gains probably subdued, though, as traders navigate the uncertain environment as we all await that August 1st deadline. Another quiet day locally. So focus will be on global news, where we have earnings season heating up. Investors are digesting TSMC's numbers. Those numbers released about an hour ago. Traders also eyeing Netflix's update out later today. Now, ahead of that print, US futures are in the red. Over in Asia, stocks mixed, with traders sifting through TSMC's upbeat second quarter performance while also digesting downbeat export data out of Japan. And then lastly, in currency markets, the rand remains stable. It is sitting at 17.88 to the dollar this hour.
Right on the money she's been, right on the money she is, and right on the money she will be. That's Ndauling Lechela there. She's kept you updated on all things to do with business, the economy, and the markets over the last 2.5 hours.
Banyana want to remind the continent that they are the African reigning champions for a good reason. They believe they will navigate an ideal path to the last four. Yet the Tiranga Lionesses want to roll with a top-class game plan. This is the quarterfinal clash of the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. South Africa versus Senegal, the Saturday 19 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 3, and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC radio stations at 9 p.m. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
All right, let's give you this story before we go. A groundbreaking study by the Northwest University, commissioned by the Water Research Commission, the WRC, has revealed significant levels of antiretroviral drugs in the country's rivers, dams, and even tap water. The research, the first of its kind in the country, sheds light on a hidden environmental and public health challenge linked to the world's largest HIV treatment program. So let's hear directly then from those at the forefront of the study, Professor Surani Horn, who is Occupational Hygiene and Health Research Initiative, who is with the Occupational Hygiene and Health Research Initiative at the Northwest University. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. So just give us a sense of what it is that, on commission from the Water Research Commission, what you went out looking for and what you found.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. So we proposed the study to the Water Research Commission, and then they funded it. And the idea of the study was to sample a lot of sites and also over time. So we chose the Gauteng and the Northwest provinces. Since Gauteng is so densely populated, we thought that we would pick up the highest concentrations there. So we chose a lot of sites around that region, 72 sites to be specific, and then also sampled these sites over a period of five months. So the study is unique because we targeted a large area and then also did it over time. And then we found concentrations of the antiretrovirals, especially lopinavir, efavirenz, and nevirapine, which has been on the ART treatment program for the last 10 years. So we found high levels of those 3 ARVs specifically, but we have detected some others as well.
Yeah. So tell us what it all means then. Is the concentration at high levels, or is it within levels that were to be expected given the size of our public health ARV treatment program?
So it's difficult to say what was expected because it was the first of its kind. But looking at literature from your global north countries such as Switzerland and the Netherlands, the levels in the water was higher than on the global front. But if I say high, it's not concerning to humans specifically, but in the environment there may be effects to the aquatic ecosystem. So your fish is exposed, and people have conducted studies in laboratories where they have exposed fish to ARVs, for example, and then these ARVs cause the disruption of biological processes, for example, liver function and hormone levels and reproduction. But when referring to the levels in the tap water, these are very, very low and pose no immediate risks to human health.
In fact, say a bit more on the environmental impact, because this has to do with what pharmaceuticals and just how that's treated across the water value chain. There's a point that's made in the write-up about your study that has to do with snails, for example, what they were showing as a result of exposure to these ARVs.
Yes, so for the environment, it poses more immediate risks. And furthermore, long-term exposure to low levels of these drugs, but not only antiretrovirals. So in the environment, we also find, we have not done these studies, but others in South Africa have found antibiotics and other pharmaceuticals, for example, paracetamol and diclofenac. And all of these contribute to a chemical cocktail thing. And sometimes these combined chemicals have an effect greater than the individual compounds. So for the environment, these effects are also not immediately visible, but can accumulate over time, leading to reduced biodiversity, for example, and an ecosystem imbalance. We have this information and proof of this environmental disruption, but I think there's still a lot of research that has to be done in South Africa on this and the exact effect in the environment.
So, Prof, am I correct in summing it up in my head as I read your the write-up on the work that you've done? Am I correct in summing it up in my head that what we're dealing with here is not necessarily an ARV or pharmaceutical issue, but rather a wastewater infrastructure issue?
Yes, as well. So I think we have sampled upstream and downstream of wastewater treatment plants, and we couldn't find a trend to say that it's higher above or below the wastewater treatment plants. But in some instances, these wastewater treatment plants really contribute to the levels that are discharged into the river. So this can be the starting point. As one of the main sources, one should look at upgrading these wastewater treatment plants, for example. But another source of how the ARVs end up in the water is through improper disposal of unused or expired medicine. So I think awareness among people might also contribute to lowering this load of ARVs that we now find in the environmental water.
Lastly, who should be paying attention to your study across? You just mentioned people and how they dispose of some of these pharmaceutical products, but who else should be paying attention, especially around the infrastructural issues that you and I have discussed?
So I think there's a few role players. I think, for example, municipalities or people supplying treated water and doing wastewater treatment should maybe look at the upgrade of this treatment technology. And then also looking at improved waste disposal. So companies do waste disposal. So in that sense, maybe one should increase that or make sure that there's proper processes for the disposal of these medicines. But then also looking at setting standards and maybe monitoring requirements for pharmaceuticals in the water. So if this is maybe monitored more constantly, one can react to that. So
Right.
I think there's a few role players that can contribute to this.
All right. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Professor Surani Horn, who's a specialist in occupational hygiene and health research initiative that is at the Northwest University.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
Champions need motivation above and beyond winning. South Africa, show your love and support for the WAFCON defending champions Banyana Banyana. Witness the CAF Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024 from 5 to 26 July 2025 on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Bit of traffic on the Mike 1 highway in Joburg this morning. A crash going southbound. So if you're driving from Melrose down into central Joburg, the collision before St Andrews, and that's pushing traffic back to the Houghton area. Also southbound, Buccleuch down to Marlborough Drive remains pretty slow on your way to Santon, and northbound up through Melrose towards Grayston Drive heavily backed as well. M2 going into Germiston, factor in queues down to Refinery Road. You might want to bypass that one. N17, you can factor a queue out towards the Brackpan exit this morning as well, just around Carnival City going eastbound on the N17. Motorists being asked to sit in some traffic there. And the R21 south towards the airport, roadworks this morning down by the Benoni exit, still slowing things up. If you're airport bound, make sure you've got some time to get through that. Durban, a breakdown M2 north on your way to King Shaka International Airport before Umhlanga, so that's in the roadworks. That's an automatic queue back as far as the Cormarshu exit. Pietermaritzburg, Ashburton looks okay. And Cape Town this morning, the N1 inbound pretty slow from sort of Kilbeson, N1 City, all the way through to the elevated freeway. The N2 inbound from Langa is busy through to Hospital Bend, and there's a bit of pressure on the M3 just at the top of Wynberg Hill as you come from Constantia up into that Bishop's Court area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, before I get to your WhatsApp voice notes as well as your calls, I do need to respond. I feel I need to respond to this message that came through. It says, this person is saying they are calling me to order as well around this story, around the comments by Minister Kumbuzo Nchabeni, going on to say, I'm being reckless. In fact, let me read it as it is. They are calling you to order as well. You are reckless to be giving this matter so much attention. Our army is a professional army. They get paid in time. There's not one TV station. The economy doesn't depend on minerals that you can get outsiders to finance you in exchange for when you are in power. There's no conditions for a coup. This is not Traore land. I take the points you are making about the factors that are usually at play around the staging of a military coup, but I don't know about not giving this matter attention. If the woman charged with state security, who's got a dashboard to all our intelligence, and knows what's happening in every nook and cranny of this country and knows who's plotting what, if she comes out in public and says there's a risk of a coup, I don't know about you, I sit up and I listen and I take it seriously until she gives me more about what this risk entails and what has been done to push back against it, or withdraws the statement and says, I misspoke. But to simply just be, I don't know, ignore it as if it didn't happen. This is all she's charged with. And she comes out and she says, this has been happening. We've foiled it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing something. All right, let me move on to these messages that have come through. In fact, on that theme of the comments by Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni.
Morning, Thulas, to your crew there, and morning to everyone else who's listening. You know, Thulas, these irresponsible utterances by Mayor, or claims for that matter, by Mayor Khumbudzo, it is just a negative reframing of the support for Tatem Mkhwanazi. And even this inquiry, it is just a defense mechanism that they are using against what Tatem Mkhwanazi is having against one of their own, which is Tatem Mkhunu.
Morning, Mr. Simelane and South Africans. Really, do we really have to take Minister Ntshavheni serious? I mean, really, you remember when she was talking about the Zamazamas? I mean, I don't take that minister serious at all. Thank you.
Hey, my brother, this thing, Minister in the Presidency, the coup d'etat, is called red herring fallacy, whereby they are deflecting our attention from Mkhwanazi issue. There is nothing. It's only because they want us to forget about what Mkhwanazi said about these stooges that they find themselves to be. They are being used at Diden Bushbuckridge.
All right, thank you for that. Let me go straight to the calls. Let me start with Taki in Limpopo. Taki, good morning to you.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. I think my view on the minister's statement is that she should be afforded space to at least outline what she really understands by the concept, and also how she came about this realization. And in as far as I'm concerned, I think they have done their risk assessment, which is the bottom line, where we can then depart this discussion from, for which the minister should be entitled to come and brief the public. Perhaps what we can say is that this statement has implications, and that is perhaps what the South Africans are concerned about. But however, what is also very important is what is the minister's mitigation strategy over this entire equation. And perhaps, Mr. Simelane, what we can also indicate is that we cannot be so unable to understand that government does not solve problems quantitatively. They solve them qualitatively, and oftentimes they resort to scenario planning. So this could be one of the scenarios that they are faced with, which they have to boggle their mind around. Thank you so much.
Taki, thank you, and I appreciate your level-headedness about this. And I do agree with you that we do need to afford her a platform. And in fact, we reached out yesterday, and we will continue to do that, because before we reach a judgment and, form a judgment, whether it's baseless or not, it would be great to hear from her the details, all the questions I've been asking this morning, to say who was plotting a coup, how was it foiled, where are the people who were, planning, are they appearing in court, what are they charged with, and etc., and all of those issues. So I do agree with you. It would be great for her to take us into her confidence, what informed those comments. Mandla in Mthatha, good morning to you.
Good morning, Thulas, and to the listeners. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I agree with the previous speaker. Intelligence are people of secrecy, and what Ms. Chaveni is saying to us must have a basis. You know, when Parliament was banned, we asked questions. When the Constitutional Court was banned, we also asked questions. And also when Thulasizwe was formed, the name itself, the character behind, or the characters behind in its leadership, and their manner of behavior in legislatures, and the very July 2021 unrest, you know, it all raises questions. So if we were to make suspicions of a coup, yes, it may not be within the SANDF, but it is within the comrades themselves.
Right.
And so, yeah, we need to give ourselves time because we share time, let's and say what is exactly happening here.
I hear you.
Thank you, Thulas.
Thank you. The only caution I would sound, though, Mandla, is that we should be careful to strike the correct balance between the kind of free expression, freedom of assembly and protest and the likes that people are entitled to, including people you may not necessarily agree with politically. They are entitled to, stage marches and the likes on the one hand, and mischaracterizing that discontent as being the seeds of some kind of, insurrection, etc. There is a threshold, of course, and you and I had this debate in 2021 whether the threshold was being crossed and at what point the threshold was crossed. But I wouldn't want to, without more being said, to start characterizing, mere protest by people that you happen to not agree with as being some kind of problematic on a scale that goes from, rigorous protest to, insurrection, a coup, etc., etc. More needs to be said. You need to say more to take us along with you with that reasoning. Kirk in Cape Town, good morning.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. KZN is a hotbed of conflict. The emergence of MKP really has only added some spice to that situation. The June 2021 riots are proof of that. The fact that Mkhwanazi is based in KZN, the support of MKP for him, and I think his whole press conference, I do believe that there was a measure of theatre to his announcement. His claims still have to be proven, of course, in a commission/court of law. But KZN really is becoming, for me, a real danger to the stability, political stability and social stability within the country. And it is concerning that it's a trend that has been ongoing for a while now. It started way back with the ANC-IFP conflict before our freedom. Since then, it's been there's political killings. It doesn't end in KZN.
Kirk, thank you for that. That's Kirk in Cape Town. Interesting take. Dumisani, let me end it off with you, because having considered all of these matters, you want us to take us to a national dialogue. Short and sharp for me, please.
Thanks, Thulas. Thanks for taking my call. Yes, I'll try to be very short, Thulas, because the national dialogue. I believe it's the president has called for national dialogue. I've got a different view on the national dialogue. I remember on the Katie show, one of the questions she asked one of the listeners that, what do you want to happen if he didn't agree on the national dialogue? And I said to myself, I think it is the right time now for our president to consider a national referendum, because if we look at the events that's unfolding at the moment, Lieutenant John Mkhwanazi, yes, all that has been happening, it is the right time now. Let the people say something. Let the people govern. If we can have a referendum, then I'm sure.
Quickly, what would be the question of the referendum? Very quickly.
First of all, we need to change our constitution. Our constitution favors the criminals mostly.
Okay.
Yeah, just to change the constitution, because there's so many people they're talking about the death penalty. And another second point, the death penalty. If you are a peace-loving South African, surely you will say yes. It is the time now that you consider bringing back the death penalty.
Completely out of time. Thank you for calling in this morning, and thank you for listening and your robust engagement as always. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane, and you've been briefed.
In our top stories, 3 people shot dead on the Cape Flats and Syria withdrawing its army from a Druze majority city. Good morning. 3 people have been shot dead and 2 others wounded in a shooting incident in Gugulethu on the Cape Flats. Police spokesperson Andre Trout says they responded to the incident in Muletsane Street in New Crossroads last night. The victims' bodies were found inside a bedroom. Trout says the motive for the attack is still under investigation.
Preliminary information indicates that 4 armed